Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some unexplainable true 4chan threads. And in today's video, we're diving into some amazing 4chan threads. Like, these are some of the best 4chan stories I have ever read, period. So you'll want to stick around, and I just want to say thank you so much for stopping by. It means the world. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. The channel's goal is 1 million subscribers, so it helps a ton, and I just love for you to join the community. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Spotify, all that jazz. And yeah, these stories will be unexplainable, horrifying, weird, scary, and all that stuff, but you'll definitely want to stick around. And without further ado, let's get into some unexplainable true 4chan threads. This is long, and I'm long-winded. Sorry, X. 2.5 years ago, I moved to Bloomington, Indiana. I'd recently decided to start anew. My grandfather had died and left me $15,000, and the only friend I had outside of Texas lived there. I didn't want to live in that god-awful oven of a state anymore, so Indiana seemed as good of a place as any, really. When I first got here, I moved in with my friend, who I'd known since early childhood. We dated a while back, broken things off, and become friends again. I didn't want to stay in that cramped apartment forever with her and her 2 girly girl roommates, so I quickly began looking for a piece of property to call my own. See, I wanted to raise goats eventually. I looked everywhere, hoping to do a lease purchase. I eventually found an older, early 1900s, late 1800s house about 20 minutes from town that sat comfortably on 23 acres of land and had an owner very willing to do a deal. It needed work, but came with an older barn, and it was a steal at the price it was offered at. I gave the woman who owned it $10,000, signed a lease purchase, and moved in a few weeks later. A week after me, my friend moved in. It was cheaper living with me than in her apartment. This was about 2 years ago. Picture unrelated. Immediately, we noticed some odd things. The woman we bought it from, who lives about 3 miles from here and we're now sort of friends with, wouldn't tell us much about the history of the house. Only that it was old, had been vacant for 2 years, and that it was 100% as is. She also would not go in the house more than necessary, nor would she walk the back 15 acres with us, which is all woods, or go into the barn. The few neighbors who had been there for more than a few years were a bit surprised we bought the place, but weren't as freaked out about it as the prior owner. I assumed it was because of all the work the property needed. There were 2 broken windows, most of the doors jammed, it needed some new wiring, 1 step was broken in the stairs, etc. Within a month, the place looked brand new. We shined the hardwood floors, painted the walls, replaced broken windows, and fixed the doors. It looked like a historical home. There were some oddities though. Like I said, first, I noted that the attic's walls were 100% unfinished, aside from a few barely hanging panels of drywall. Yet the steps in the floor were carpeted, and someone had wired the upstairs for cable and telephone. We don't get cable out here, so why someone would do that, I don't know. One of the drywall panels had a drawing from a children's book from the 1960s or so, I'd say, nailed to it, and it had been colored over. It wasn't anything creepy, and looked like it was from Alice in Wonderland, and the child had just filled in the lines. The original drawing was black and white. However, it was nailed to a much newer piece of drywall, 4 to 5 years old, and there had been no children in the house for much longer than that. The board also had ripped edges from other drawings on it, and several children's handprints in blue and pink paint. I didn't think much of it at the time, and still don't classify it as 100% paranormal. Strangely, the attic's lights, it had several, did not work. In the crawl space in it, there were 2 that I found immediately, did not have floors, just drywall covered in carpet, which I really found fucking bizarre. This also killed me because I crawled in one and almost fell through the ceiling. The attic soon became my project. especially as winter set in and the house became drafty. I was 100% convinced at the time it was the attic. I ripped up the carpet first. The carpet did not have padding under most of it, only about half the attic, and there were unfinished hardwood floors beneath it. Under the side that didn't have padding, there were what looked like chalk lines under the carpet on the wood, but they'd gotten smeared over the years. And I assumed the same children who left me the handprints and drawing had played with chalk one day. Now, I just find that sort of unnerving. I then went about finishing the floors in the crawl space and repairing the damage I did when I almost fell through and wiring the attic properly. I didn't know it didn't have lights until I tried working up there after dark one night and the lights wouldn't come on. To do that, I removed most of the drywall, as I wanted a few plugs up there. This didn't include the board with the handprints. Now, it's worth noting that I can't smell shit. I grew up on a farm, and I've smelled blood, rot, and feces regularly since I was born. Unless an odor's truly overpowering, it just doesn't really bother me. Until I was done with the wiring, my roommate hadn't ever been up in the attic. When she went up there once, she immediately told me something smelled and tracked the odor down to a piece of drywall with the handprints/drawing. I humored her, removed it, and was unpleasantly surprised by what I found. A dead, rotting cat. It hadn't been there more than a couple months, although the attic had been sealed. No openings large enough for a cat. The only door up to it had been closed. I didn't think much of it though, and threw the cat out. After scrubbing the space, I replaced the drywall, finished the walls, and considered it a day. My bedroom is unfortunately located when you go up the stairs. If you turn up left, you come to my door within a few feet. My room's the biggest, about 40% of the upstairs living area. Unfortunately, it also has the only door to the attic in it. If you go the entire length of my room, you come to a small hall at the end. And if you turn left again, you've got my attic. It's hard to describe, really. This unnerved me a little, especially after I began hearing thumping noises above me, usually at night. At first, I assumed it was a rat or something of the sort. Come in for the winter. I'd never heard the noise before then. After it got bad one night, it sounded like something was hopping around up there and getting into the things I'd stored there. I went up there to see if I could find the little bugger's nest. I knew it wasn't the walls, as I had just recently put most of them in. I checked the floor, even ripping up one board, which looked damaged. Nothing but dust and a few marbles. I assumed the children who'd surely been up there lost them in the floor somehow. Eventually, I began checking the walls for any hollow spots after the noises got progressively louder. Eventually, I found one behind the only piece of drywall I hadn't replaced. Behind it was another crawl space, this one finished with a floor. I didn't find anything in it, nowhere for the rat or whatever to hide. However, it was abnormally cold. Despite having only one external wall, we're talking a good 20 Fahrenheit lower than my mid-40s/50s attic. It was like I'd stepped outside. I added an access, put up rat traps, and forgot about it. I never caught a rat, nor did I ever find animal droppings. The noises continued, getting louder as winter went on, until it sounded like there was a party going on upstairs. When spring came, the noises got less intense, a thump or two every night, but that was it. I got used to it, and I never mentioned it to my roommate, who apparently didn't hear the noises. She never complained about it. The crawl space, however, remained cold and unnerving. Even in the summer, the crawl space was much cooler than my air-conditioned home. It was not the only cold spot, nor the only one I had direct contact with. The second cold spot was my closet. When we first moved in, I noticed how much colder it was than the rest of the house, a good 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and that it had a light, musty smell that even I could notice. I stored boxes and records in it, and nothing else. I decided to air it out and left it open one morning, only to find it closed when I got home. After repeating the cycle 2 or 3 more times, I asked my roommate to stop closing the door. She claimed she hadn't been in the room and didn't know what I was talking about. I found it creepy, but brushed it aside. I began leaving it open at night, but found it hard to sleep. When I did finally fall asleep, I'd awake to it being closed again. I stopped trying. The third cold spot was located in the empty third bedroom and was dead center in the middle of the room. It was the least intense but very noticeable, and you'd walk across the room and feel it. We have 4 dogs and 2 cats in the house, and all the animals refused to go in that room. Despite it being bigger than my roommate's room and having a much larger closet, she didn't pick it when we moved in, instead picking the smaller room that shared a wall with my snoring ass. I think we were all bothered by that room. In mid-spring, we got another roommate, a kid I'd met online who was getting kicked out and I felt bad for. He took up the empty third bedroom, under the crawl space. Not long after that, my first roommate, F for now on, to avoid confusion with the new guy, N, got a boyfriend, T, who began to stay over more. Immediately, N began to complain about the cold spot and how it was poor installation. He also complained how his dog didn't like to be in his room and blamed that on the cold. He went out of his way, even in the summer, to make it warmer in his room. While it'd be hotter than hell in 90% of his room, if you stood in the cold spot, you'd still feel it. He also began complaining of a tapping noise in the ceiling, which he said sounded like fingers rapping on a desk, and blamed on a rat. I was glad someone else heard the invisible rat and tried in earnest to find the fucker again. We still never found it. Meanwhile, I bought 11 more acres from a neighbor directly behind my property. This was largely woods, with a small stream running through it. By now, I was trying to fence in my property so I could bring my horses. I'd bought a few over the spring, home, and let my 2 pet goats out of their stall in the barn. Our first summer in the house was in full swing. The barn was another thing of interest. When we moved in, the barn was filthy. The stalls, 5 of them, and built-in run in were filled with feces, horse, cow, muck, and trash. 2 stalls were full of horse tack, buckets, bags of trash, etc. Apparently, about a year before we moved in, the barn had been rented out to someone with 5 horses. They'd left in a hurry. We assumed back rent, and hadn't cleaned anything before they left, and had left all their tack. What we first assumed was a treasure trove of unclaimed belongings soon just became a hassle, and abnormally thick, literally an inch in some places. Layer of dust was over everything, making it so we couldn't even tell what most of it was before we cleaned it. It took so long to clean things, and so much of it was trash, that a lot of things just went into the trash. We did get some very nice bridles and a saddle out of the mess, which we thought was odd. The stalls were cleaned, and the main room was also cleaned. The main room also had the thick dust, which was actually worse. We first thought it had a dirt floor, until we discovered it was stone underneath. The stones/bricks were very old and very dirty. Some had numbers and letters carved into them. Eventually, we got 2 goats, which we kept in one of the stalls. The rest of the barn remained empty, and as I said before, there was no fencing. While working on the fencing, we began to notice our progress was being hindered. We'd put in 24 poles a day, woke up the next morning, and a quarter of them would be knocked over, laying sometimes feet away from the holes. We assumed it was just pranksters and went on regardless. Soon, we had the actual wire up. It was then that we realized whatever was destroying the fence was a determined motherfucker. We'd come out one morning and entire sections of wire would be broken, meaning we'd have to redo hours of work. It was then that T, my main helper for the fence, said roughly the following. Probably not an exact quote, but it goes as follows. "It's gotta be kids. It's not like deer are doing this. I've never even seen a fucking deer out here." I realized then that I'd never seen any wildlife out there either. Nothing big anyway. Our neighbors' lawns were full of deer, and we'd occasionally see one in the back acres, especially around the stream, but never anything around the barn, house, or in the fields. Not just deer either. Birds, raccoons, even dogs. Nothing ever came around. Eventually, we got the fencing up, bought the horses home, and life was normal for a while. And began acting oddly. Although he'd always been the lonely neckbeard type, this coming from a man who actually sports a neckbeard, he stopped coming out of his room, aside from using the bathroom and occasionally eating, and refused to go outside. Because of this, he stopped paying his share of the bills and his rent as he quickly ran out of money. It soon became so bad that he didn't even leave his room to walk his dog, or even let it outside. We didn't realize this until it began peeing everywhere, and he began blaming us, mostly our dogs, but he once accused T of urinating in the hall. And after a while, he was no longer talking to us. By then, F and I were both planning on kicking him out, but didn't exactly know how to word it to him, and I felt bad, as I knew he had nowhere to go. I was at work one day when I got a call from a very upset F. Apparently, she'd been showering, and upon leaving the bathroom with just a towel on, we all got used to N basically not being there and acted like he wasn't most of the time, found N right outside of the bathroom door, just staring at it. He wouldn't move to let her by, and she actually had to push him out of the way. She figured he was just being an ass, went to her room, got dressed, and went to tell him off, only to find him standing outside her bedroom door that time. He wouldn't speak to her or move again, and she was a bit worried he was up to something. She wanted me to come home. I did and asked him why he'd done that. He refused to speak, but did message me over MSN and basically told me he hadn't done it. I believe F, as she's never lied about shit like that before, and that I was an awful person because I lived in the country and had bad internet and didn't walk his dog for him. I gave him a week's notice to get out then and there. He left exactly a week later without saying anything and took all our pillowcases when he left. That really fucking ruffled my jimmies, but not as much as his room did. Oh, when I saw his room, my jimmies were as ruffled as they could get. His room was full of trash, literally piles of it. He'd also began to urinate in bottles and had snooked off onto the walls. No, I'm not kidding. We were in the process of cleaning it when we were actually attacked by an iguana that he'd brought into the house at some point and never told us about, which had been hiding under his bed. None of us ever heard from N after that, so I don't know what came of him. His room remained empty for over a year. It was about then that the actual weird shit began happening. I'd come home to find things in my room rearranged. Pencils would be taken out of my desk drawers and arranged in neat little squares. My keyboard would be stacked on top of my hard drive, which my speakers on top of it. My books would be taken out of my shelves and stacked into pyramids. This would happen if I'd left and no one else had come home while I was gone. Sometimes it'd happen when I left to go to the bathroom and came right back to my room. It began happening to F and T, who soon moved in completely as well, although to a lesser extent. Dust began returning in the barn without any real source. We'd clean things one night, come back in the morning, only to find a thick layer of dust on everything, more than one could explain away from bedding or dirt. We don't live in a dry area, by the way. The creepiest thing to happen to me thus far came in the early fall. I built a small shed to store my tools in by the house and went out one morning, well, about 11 p.m., to find T digging through the shed. T and F both go to college, and he shouldn't have been home at the time. I asked him what he was doing, and he replied that he needed something and kept going through the things. I noticed him leave with a pair of garden shears and a pickaxe a few minutes later and thought nothing of it, other than he was probably high. I didn't see him for the rest of the day until he came back from class with F. He told me he'd been at class all day long, and the reason his car hadn't moved was thanks to carpooling. One could argue he'd lied and snuck off at some point, but it really freaked me out. There's no chance in hell the guy I saw run off with my shears and pickaxe was not him. And if it wasn't, he's got an identical twin out there somewhere. I didn't see either tool again for months. Midwinter, I went out to find my shears wedged between two of the front porch boards, just hanging out. The pickaxe has yet to be found. No, I don't know what they were used for. My shears were in clean, oiled condition when they reappeared, and didn't look any different than when I'd first seen them. I never noticed any holes or trimmed bushes on my property. Not long after, we began stocking up on hay for our horses over the winter. This was before the shears reappeared. We never used our hayloft before, as we'd only had about 20 bales of hay at the time, which we stacked downstairs. We were busily putting hay up there with the help of some redneck friends, when F, who'd been up in the loft stacking hay, fell out one of the portholes on the side of the barn. She ended up with a badly sprung wrist, and is probably lucky that's all that happened. We assumed she'd tripped or slid, but she was horribly angry when she got down there, because she thought one of us had pushed her. Only one of my friends had been up there, and we, myself and my other friend, could both see him at the time she fell, and he was nowhere near her. To this day, she insists someone pushed her. It's worth noting that the stacking/rearranging of items was still going on at this time, and had moved on to fruit and other small items downstairs in the dining room and kitchen. We'd also begun finding stray marbles around the house. Winter hit, and it hit hard. When we got the first snow, we got a few inches of it, and caring for the horses became more of a hassle, with blanketing and such. I kept 2 chickens at the time, who had free range of my barn during the day. One evening, I went to put everyone up, and the chickens were both gone. I searched everywhere for them, and never found their bodies, blood, footprints of them, or any other animal, or even a feather. I still have not found them. By the time I got back from searching the nearby area, it was already dark out. It hadn't been when I left, so the lights in the barn had been off when I left. Now, however, they were on. I first thought that F or T had come out and turned them all on, but there was no footprints other than mine and my dog's, and I didn't see their cars in the driveway. I figured I'd done goofed, and went about my routine of putting food in stalls, cleaning up last night's shit, and filling water buckets. Now I've got a draft horse. He's big, he's fat, and you don't fuck with his feeding routine. He'll literally tear apart a barn if he doesn't get his food, and he's never late for a meal. Hell, most of my horses aren't. Not one horse was at the run-in, waiting to be led into their stalls. The goats who'd been given their food were nervous and not eating. I was worried at that point that someone had been messing around the barn and possibly stolen the chickens and maybe done something with the horses. I grabbed a ledge rope, went out into the dark and snow-covered pasture, and began calling for horses. Still, no one came. Hell, my dog hadn't even followed me out into the pasture and was staying in the barn this time. I felt very alone all of a sudden, but as if someone or something were watching me. I trudged on, jumpy but determined, and eventually found 5 very jumpy and upset horses in the back corner of the pasture. None of them wanted to come to the barn, and I literally had to drag one back. The draft horse went into his stall, only to practically run me over trying to get out a second later, and had to be pushed and prodded back into his stall. By the time everyone was up, 2 hours had gone by, and I was pretty jumpy myself. I remember seeing shapes at the edge of my limited vision. Shit gets dark in the country, and at some point, you just see shapes in the distance. But these could have been my imagination or deer. I was happy to get inside anyway. The next night, Eth went out with me to feed the horses. They were jumpy, but less so than the night before, although I felt like I was being watched and couldn't wait to go back to the house. Eth later told me that it felt thin out there that night. When she explained further, she said she thought the lines between realms were thin. She's a bit of a paranormal freak, but I can't say I didn't feel it too. Not long after, my pet goat Wally began to choke on his food. He stopped being able to eat properly, and we called a vet. The vet told us he was healthy from what we could tell, and everything checked out. I tried lots of things, from massaging his neck to patting his back while he ate, but he got no better and began to get thin. Eventually, he died. I don't know if it's related or not, but his rather sudden, it all happened in about 2 weeks, death, and how the vet couldn't explain it, bothered me. I bought a few more goats to keep my other fellow company, and forgot about it, until one of my other goats died from strangely similar symptoms a month later. I became incredibly paranoid, fearing they'd all caught some sort of horrible goat disease. Fortunately, no one else died, and the best I can explain was the dust got to them. We built a new barn in the spring. This is the 3rd winter here, so I was probably wrong about my earlier estimate of 2 years. It's been a long day. 3 makes more sense when I honestly think about it, and suffered no more deaths, as said before. The horses also began to perk up, acting less skittish in general. We no longer used the other barn. When I last went in there, the dust was back to an inch thick. We don't even store things in there, and our new barn does not have these problems. Unlike the winter before, things didn't get better with spring. New noises began popping up, including a loud hum from the pipes. A toy plane positioned atop some shelves flew off the shelves and hit me in the face when I was on the computer. The stacking intensified until it was no longer 1 to 2 stacks a day, but 3 to 4 a day. We began to admit we had a problem. By the end of spring, F and T were fighting like cats and dogs, and T eventually left. I came home one evening to find all the upstairs windows open. I was the first to come home, and nothing had been stolen. We found a marble in the garbage disposal, but not until I've been running it. We had to buy a new one. F is Jewish. I'm not religious. She suggested we get someone to bless the house, and eventually convinced her rabbi to do it. He did it, and things got better for a while. He did an entire ceremony, and the house stopped being stuffy and intimidating, like it had grown to be. The noises stopped for the most part, marble stopped popping up, and we got only a few stacks a week. The old barn remained odd, especially at night, and occasionally we'd have to go in there to turn off the lights or close doors that had turned on themselves. We went trail riding that summer on the property, only for both our horses to spook at nothing by the stream, dump us, and run off to hide in the barn. We seriously don't know what they spooked at, and we still can't get them to go near that stream. No, it isn't water. They're fine with water, if it isn't that stream. Sorry for being slow. I didn't expect anyone to read this far down. Other than a few oddities, things were better. My sister visited me for the first time at my house. We met in town once when she drove up there, but I didn't really want her knowing where my house was, and remarked that the house, quote, creeped her out. My girlfriend at the time said the same thing when she first saw the house. But like I said, things were a lot better. This winter, things have gotten bad again. It started in late November and just got worse. The noises returned in the attic, accompanied by new ones. I went to bed one night and began hearing classical music. I asked F to turn it off, and she said it wasn't her music. It stopped a few minutes later. We sometimes hear a click in the basement. F got a new boyfriend a few months back, who we'll call L. He claims something watches him from the attic, although he only first claimed this a week or two ago. F's reluctant to go upstairs, and I come home to find her sleeping on the couch sometimes. Money's tight, so we got another roommate. The first one we've had since N. They took the spare bedroom, which we kept empty, aside from furniture, and left, and told me yesterday, after only a month here, that they couldn't stay anymore and had to go. They just didn't feel comfortable here. The stacks are worse again too. I woke up this morning with the attic key in the door and the door unlocked. I always lock it when I'm done going up there, so it doesn't pop open and a dog doesn't go up there. I never leave the key in the door. I decided to try and figure out what happened and called the woman I bought the house from to talk to her. I didn't tell her we had been having any problems, and she hasn't been to the house in over a year, so she doesn't really know what's been happening. I just told her I wanted to know the history. She told me she was glad I liked the house so much because she hadn't wanted to tell me quite everything when I bought the place. Apparently, she rented it out in the 80s. She's owned it since the mid-70s and only lived in it for a few years then. She lived in it again in the 90s and rented it out in the 2000s. And her tenant ended up committing S-word by hanging in the house. In my fucking closet. There's an exposed beam in the ceiling, so I guess that's as good of a place as any. She said it like it was a joke. I don't think that's the only thing that has happened here. I don't think that explains why the barn's got so many problems or why the attic does. F's leaving, moving in with L. Says she can't handle living here. I'm tempted to agree with her and have begun looking for a new place. It's just too stressful living here. No, we didn't have some big event happen. No, we didn't have skeletons or ghosts pop out and R-word us. And Slenderman isn't haunting us. We're just tired of it. My TV randomly turns itself off at night, only to turn back on and wake me up on different channels. My window's open. It's always drafty and cold. It's 1,000 little things. No rattling chains or screaming banshees. It's just uncomfortable here. F's packing up, but says she won't leave until I've got a place to go. The new roommate, we'll call him A, plans on leaving Tuesday. I'm considering taking a job down in Kentucky, and I'm driving down there to look at a house Monday. It's new construction, and I think all my houses from now on will be. Congrats to those who finished it. Yeah, I know, it's long and boring and lacks a good end. I just thought you guys may like to read it. If you have any questions, I'll stay up and answer them. I'm not sleeping tonight anyway. Thumping's too loud. Oh, and did I mention the attic lights went out over the fall? I've tried fixing them 3 times, but they won't work anymore. And nothing I do, or the professional electrician we hired did, fixes them. And then some people start asking some questions. Someone says, have you tried leaving a sound recorder on in the paranormal hotspots overnight? I mean, if you really do have all these problems, why not just rent out another place and open this one up as like a haunted hotel tourist trap kind of thing? Just an idea. And then the OP says, oh, and to clarify one more thing, I'm in the process of selling the place. I got a real loan back in 2009, and I've got about $40K paid off on the place, $10K down payment plus about $20K in payments, plus a $10K present F's rich Jewish dad gave me. I've got 2 interested parties who like it for the 33 acres, 2 barns and historical house. If they don't go through, I'll kind of give myself out to my parents to get the other house and try and lease this until I can sell it. And then someone else says, OP, I'd suggest fucking with the ghost. show the bitch you mean business. Burn down the old barn, like straight up torch it. Don't call for insurance or anything. Just be like, hey, motherfucker, I bought this house and I plan on staying here. If you keep effing with me though, I'll burn down your favorite places. Also, the next few nights after that, sleep in a motel. The ghost will probably be pissed. I checked local historical register for something happening in that house in 1933. It is long known that CAPTCHA is prophetic. Someone else says, great. This makes me kind of nervous to move into my new home. My fiance and I just bought a home a few states away. It's an old Victorian and a fixer-upper. I mean, a real fixer-upper. It was a good story, had me intrigued. Also, despite there not being any real big ending, it was good. Thanks for keeping me entertained while I wait to go to bed. And then the OP starts to answer some of these questions, saying, hopefully there won't be a next time. This isn't fake, although I understand if you think it is. He also replies to another comment saying, I really want to cut ties with it and get the fuck out of here. If I'm stuck with it, I might try that, just so it doesn't get taken back. I don't want to fuck up my credit because of fucking ghosts. I'm honestly afraid to leave a tape recorder out. Although Elle suggested it before, I'm afraid something will be telling us to go die in a fire on it. He also says, I don't plan on putting any more money in this house, and I'm saving up right now to get into the next place. The best I could do is leave my webcam on during the day while I'm gone, and it's so grainy, you'd probably never see anything in it. He also says, I might try it in the morning, but I don't want to listen to it. F and L can if they want, but I don't want to. I'm too much of a chicken shit. I'd do it right this minute, but if I have a tape recorder, it's in the attic. And then the OP finally says, good night and good luck, and finally comments, if I can't sell the place and have to stay here, I might try that. I don't honestly know where one finds a Catholic priest or how F got the rabbi here. Do I just go into a church and ask for ghost help? And that's the last we have ever heard from the OP on this story, but you guys might be going, oh, well, that was a boring story. And I kind of understand that, but once again, this is true 4chan's threads, and I tried to pick some true stories. And to me, this seemed true because a lot of true stories are often not that climatic. They don't have a crazy ending. But I think the ending there was disturbing. I mean, he called the old homeowner, and she's like, someone committed S-word in here, and it's in your closet. I mean, just think about that for a second. Imagine you lived in a house, all this crazy shit's happening, and there's cold spots in your house, and you can't explain it, and there's knocking, and there's tapping, and all this stuff, and you call the old homeowner, and she says someone committed S-word in your closet, and you never knew. And there's always weird shit happening with the closet. I mean, that is just so scary to me, and this just feels like a true story because a lot of the fake stories, they just go for it, and they go on a crazy ramble, giving all these crazy details that just don't seem realistic. But this one just seems eerie, and like the OP said, unnerving. And I mean, it was unexplainable. Who knows what it was? And so that's the title of this video. But I hope you enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed this one. And yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. And just a quick preface before we get into this next story. This story is a lot different than usual. It is not your average scary story I read, and it's a slow burner, but it is so worth the listen. At first, you'll be caught off guard. I do agree the details and the descriptions of some things are a little bit odd, but the story just blew my mind. It is often labeled as one of the greatest green texts of all time, so you'll want to stick around. And without further ado, let's get into The Ballad of Ella. This is my story, B. Be me, 19-year-old college freshman. This was 10 years ago. I had this bro from high school, Pete. We were friends, but not exactly bros. He was a cool guy, and I think I was cool to him. Turns out we applied to the same college and enrolled, going to the same classes, practically spending all of our time together. Away from you, family, with your high school life behind you, things can get hectic. Yeah, you are teenagers with no real problems to deal with, but you still need a friend you can depend on. And we were that friends to each other. Fast forward a couple of months. Second semester. We start taking this new class. And there is this girl in the class. Not just us, but every human being with a working PP in the entire campus is losing their shit over her. Ordinary straight girls are ready to become lesbians just for her. I mean, man, wow, what an angel, a beam of light? Do a machina descending from heaven? I have no fucking idea. A value over 10 is a measurement that applies to us, mere mortals. Her beauty cannot be calculated or properly abstracted with numbers. And looking at her is like something you know you shouldn't do. Not because it's creepy or socially awkward or some other shit. It's because you feel like you're not worthy. Not for her, you're not. No, not her. But we were looking. Turns out we first saw her practically at the same time. And we wanted to point her to one another. But we couldn't take our eyes off of her. So we sat in some lousy economy class or whatever and drooled over her for half an hour. Before I whispered, dude, fuck me. And it took Pete a solid 5 minutes before he could simply say, yeah. There she was, this 5'9" lady with long, wavy auburn hair and emerald green eyes to die for, and pretty sure to kill for, sitting just a couple feet away from us. Yeah, so, fuck me, was the correct response in that situation. Pick is unrelated random chick. After the class, to this day, I can't remember for the life of me what the fuck it was about. We were already orbiting her like some lousy asteroids stuck to a massive black hole, creepily getting closer and closer to her as she sucked us in, bumping to each other and walking like we were drunk and out of our minds. I don't know what it was. Maybe she realized that we were following her like pervs, or maybe it was something else. Halfway to the cafeteria, she just stopped and turned towards us. We immediately bumped into each other and stopped as well. But her beauty was so miraculous, we forgot to look somewhere else. I remember her gaze. It was like the back of her head blew open and brains splattered all over the hallway. Those green eyes, man. And she smiled. She fucking smiled. If we weren't healthy, fit males in their prime, we would have died of a heart attack at that moment. We couldn't breathe. She was so beautiful. So there we were, still staring at her, our eyes and mouths wide open. We were in our low, way low 2-digit IQs at that moment. And there she was, in all of her glory. Like I said, 5'9", long wavy auburn hair, emerald green eyes, long curvy and athletic legs, slimmer at the knees, well-defined muscles on her calves and soft but rigid thighs. Her ankles were so elegant, but her tendons were sprained, as if she were a wild gazelle ready to bolt out at a moment's notice. Her butt, I can't call it an ass, not hers. Ass is what girls have. This lady had something else. She had buttocks that required a new definition of the word. They were so firm and so well shaped, you could perfectly calculate for pi if you took the measurement. Her breasts, I don't even have the words. To this day, I'm still searching for the right words, and I will try and describe them later in this story, but I will fail terribly. I can still remember what she was wearing that day. I know what she was wearing probably better than her on the day she wore them. And I know this because Pete knew this. After she looked at us and smiled, just for a few seconds, which felt like an eternity, she turned around again and kept on walking. We just stayed put. We couldn't follow her. Our black hole left us lonely asteroids to the pitch black emptiness of cold space. So after the school, we went to our dorm room with no information about her whatsoever. No name, no nothing. Just a mental image of her elegant stance etched deep into our minds. I was looking at the picture of random women with green eyes and auburn hair on Yahoo. That was the only thing I could do. But none of the images even came close to matching her beauty. Well, Pete felt like he had to do something. And he fucking started searching for her clothes. I shit you not. He was searching for her clothes on Amazon and eBay and all these fashion and shopping sites neither of us knew nothing about. He started with searching for her skirt, which was this black wool cashmere circle skirt with a playful flare at the bottom, couple inches above her knee, revealing her thighs just a little bit. When he found it, he shouted, "I found it, fuck yeah." And I thought he had found her. But when I saw what he found, which was this, I don't know what brand skirt on Amazon, I was far from being disappointed. I was feeling the same way. We didn't know her name, but fuck if we didn't know what skirt she was wearing. Pete kept going with the search and I helped him. At the end of the night, we knew what flat she was wearing, what shirt. We even knew what brand her red bow-shaped hair clip was. I mean, look, we are straight guys. I figure I'm a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8. Pete is an easy 8 out of 10, pushing 9. We were both fit. We don't have ugly pimples on our faces or anything. We were both very decent. We were not short, chubby. And also, we were not the most popular kids in high school. We were definitely not social cast-outs either. But that night, we were more gay than a male fashion design student wearing pink Donna Grays and coming out of the closet singing YMCA. And we knew what skirt she was wearing, so yeah. And before we went to sleep, Pete had an idea. That motherfucker had the most excellent idea. He knew he needed an extra something if he was ever going to talk to her, let alone date her. So he decided he should start learning about fashion and use his knowledge as a conversation starter. Meanwhile, I was feeling like I could go to Mars with a new Apollo mission, or save the world from a new regime all by myself, and still wouldn't be able to impress her. I was a hopeless F-slur. Next morning, the first thing Pete did was to enroll in a class on fashion design. Pete didn't know if this tactic was even going to work. Pete didn't know if this magnificent creature would speak fashion with him. But he had hopes. Meanwhile, we were both unable to speak to her. We were a bunch of beta F-slurs, scared out of our minds. But we learned her name from a friend. Ella. Ella was her name. Pete didn't want to waste his chances in leaving a perfect first impression with Ella. Well, the first impression both of us have left with us standing in the middle of the hallway, staring at her like we were a bunch of R-worded perverts. But speaking to her was a different matter altogether. I figured if Pete had no chance of talking to her now, how could I? Besides, Pete was so into zone. I didn't want to compete. Not that I could, or so I believed. Fast forward a couple of weeks. Pete, as a freshman, knew more about fashion than seniors knew about economy in our department. He was spending his nights browsing fashion blogs. Every night, he would come to our room with a list of items she was wearing that day, studying her taste in fashion. Pete told me that this could actually work, since while a lot of the girls on campus dressed like trailer trashes, Ella was always amazing in her choice of clothes. Our room was filled with editions of Vogue and GQ and shit. A couple of friends have seen our stash of fashion magazines and joked about it. So we made a lousy explanation of how they were quality snooking it material and got away with it. One day, Pete woke up and turned to me. "I'm ready," he said, like Neo saying, "I know Kung Fu." I said, "Show her." Anyways, Pete decided that whatever she's wearing that day, he felt like he could intelligently talk to her about her clothes. After the economy class, I wished him luck, and we parted ways. An hour later, he found me. I asked him, "How did it go?" I don't know, man. I really don't know. I mean, I might as well have done great or fucked it up completely." "Why?" "Look, we talked about fashion for an hour." "So you talked for an hour? That's great, man." Damn, we were beta F-slurs. "Yeah, but what if she thinks I'm gay?" I started laughing. Pete had a point. Straight guys don't usually talk about fashion. Certainly not about women's fashion. Suddenly, Ella comes out of nowhere. I froze. Pete looked at me and understood that Ella was coming our way. "Hey, Pete." And I heard Ella's voice for the first time. She had a crackly, deep voice. Kind of reminds me of Scarlett Johansson now. A lot of people don't think that kind of voice is flattering, but if you found me a soprano that sings Agnus Dei, I would have told you, shut that woman up and let Ella sing. "Hey, Ella," said Pete, his heart probably skipping a couple of beats. I remembered now. I got it from Anthropology. I have absolutely no idea what she's talking about. "Oh, thanks." "Don't mention it. It's from last season, though. I don't think you could buy it for your sister, but they might have something similar." "Oh, well, thank you for telling me, Ella." "You're welcome. See you around, Pete." "See you, Ella." And we watched Ella walking away from us gracefully until she disappeared in the distance, still looking at her general direction as if we could still see her. "Dude, your sister is 7. "Yeah, I know." Yeah, I know she is." "Yeah, I know. Magnificent. A week later, Pete had another idea. In order to not look like a gay couple, he suggested that we develop this manly handshake and establish that we are in fact bros. Like a bunch of idiots, we stayed up all night, working out this complex yet subtle, or so we thought, secret handshake. Our stupidity was at an immeasurable new height. Pete was chatting up Ella little by little every day, but he was afraid of becoming a gay BFF and lose all chance of dating her. So he requested me to approach them tomorrow at some point mid-conversation and apply the handshake. Okay then. After our economy class, I gave Pete some time, then joined them in the cafeteria. As I approached them, Pete saw me coming, excused himself like a true boss gentleman, and we started acting out this ridiculous handshake in unison. I mean, it was absolute bullshit. Hands and fingers everywhere, clicking and fist bumping and doing other various stuff. It was like the douchebag version of Cirque du Soleil. Halfway through, yeah, it was that long it almost needed an interlude, Ella starts laughing her ass off. She was laughing like a crazy person. We freeze. The blood drains away from Pete's face. Pale as fuck. We realize that we just fucked up. We fucked up immensely, and we force ourselves to turn and face Ella. She's trying to silence herself, still laughing. Pete and I still holding hands like idiots. She tries to apologize for laughing, but then she starts laughing even louder. We look around and hope that no one other person has acknowledged how dumb we look. Fortunately, no one other than Ella is laughing, but Ella is still laughing. Pete has this is how we die face. I'm all good. Ella's laughter finally dies down, and we're looking at her like rabbits caught in headlights. Guys, I know you're not gay. And she starts laughing again. Pete looks like he's about to shit his pants. And I don't know what it was. Maybe I started losing my nerve. Or maybe it was like a chain reaction to Ella's laughter. I start laughing my ass off as well. That manly handshake started playing out in my head over and over again. And I began to imagine myself doing the handshake, and I realized how absolutely idiotic it must have looked like. Pete starts laughing as well. All three of us are crying at this point. Now people are looking at us like, what the fuck? And that's how I met Ella. We finally sit down. I'm still chuckling like an ape. I extend my hand towards Ella. Hi, I'm Anon. She firmly grabs my hand. My God, her hands are beautiful. Long, slender fingers embrace my hairy man paws like the branches of a delicate flower. She has a very cold touch. Almost freezing, but at the same time, it's such an awakening feeling. I can feel the hairs on my forearm rising. Hi, Anon. I'm Ella. She responds with a warm smile and an incredibly sharp, piercing gaze. Her spellbinding eyes are filled with both an I got you now attitude and an older sister's love I melt. For how long have you guys practiced that stupid handshake, she asks. We start blushing like 5-year-old kids. All night, Pete answers as silently as possible. Ella claps her hands and pops a loud chuckle. I knew it, waving her fingers towards us. You guys are insecure. Pete grumbles. Oh, it's so cute. She puts on a funny face, pouting her spectacular pink lips. I'm losing my grasp on English language right now. Well, guys, I know you're not gay, but you're definitely homophobic. Well, we're not. I try to defend myself futilely. Oh, it's okay, Anon, she smiles. I can understand that feeling. Pete must be losing his mind. He just sits there, trying to find a way to regain his composure. Oh, come on, Pete. I know you feel uneasy talking to me about fashion. Pete looks shocked. He doesn't understand how he could be sidelined so bad. But he tries to make a case, which I assume he has none. It's really okay, Pete. I can sense that you have been working on fashion, makes a finger quote, for some time. Oh, fuck. Our jaws are sweeping the floor. How? Pete mumbles. Seriously, I know about your fashion class in your room full of fashion magazines. Ella winks at Pete. I'm about to lose my shit. Pete looks like he's been shot by Cupid's 50 cal machine gun. He's crushing hard, madly in love. How did you know? I ask, since Pete cannot come to the phone right now. Well, first of all, I have a friend in Pete's fashion class, and also some of your chums were talking about your stash and I overheard them. Pete silently mouths, fuck me. But most of all, Pete, I can see that you are new to the fashion world. Where did I go wrong? Pete must have been losing his hope at this point. Well, a fashionista, how can I put it, must look more fashionable, don't you think? Ella was right. Granted, Pete didn't walk around wearing shitty flip-flops and baggy sweatpants, but he wasn't actually a fashion icon either. Pete looks like he's about to burst into tears. Besides, your fashion sense has no context. A person who is deeply involved in any subject always speaks in some form of context. As Ella talks about Pete's failure, I feel both incredibly sad and incredibly turned on. Maybe I'm not from a family or a place where there were a lot of smart women around, and maybe I was just a dumb, homophobic, or maybe even sexist fuck. Who thinks all women learn about everything in life by furiously banging Ken and Barbie dolls into each other in their childhood? But I'll be damned if this magnificent woman isn't smart. Hey, it's okay, Pete. Ella sees Pete cringing like a puckered behind. I know why you did it. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Pete lines up like someone stuck a needle full of adrenaline into his chest. Meanwhile, I'm lost in Ella's eyes, studying her beautiful face as she talks. So I'm gonna give you a chance. Go ahead. Ask. Ask what? Pete shits the bed. Ella tilts her head and gives him a really face. Pete comes around again. Gains his composure like a champ for the first time during the conversation. Well, do you want to grab a cup of coffee with me after school? Ella smiles at him and playfully nods with her eyes closed. I would love that, Pete. And she chuckles. And I sit there like a F-slur thinking of asking, can I come too? Ella is beyond words to me. I feel stupid and powerless near her. Thank you. Pete barely makes any sense. I can't imagine being in his place right now. Getting the green light from Ella after believing that he fucked up so badly. Ella laughs playfully and changes the subject. So we sat there and talked about our lives and how we knew each other for an hour. And I was able to get to know Ella, even if it was just for a little bit. But it was an amazing experience. A couple of weeks later, Pete and Ella were a couple. I've never seen Pete so happy. He was over the clouds all the time. The guy was out of his mind, counting seconds for their next date every time he kissed Ella goodbye. And I was happy for my bro. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel uneasy every time I saw Ella. Ella was still the most amazing woman I've ever seen in my life. Nothing came remotely close to matching her beauty, not to mention her wits. And speaking to her was more fun than I could have ever had, doing anything. And I was trying extremely hard not to fall for her. I owed it to my bro and to myself. Fortunately, Ella came to my help. She introduced her friend Nicole to me. Nicole was the girl in Pete's fashion class, the girl Ella was talking about. Nicole was an incredibly beautiful girl. She was this amazing redhead, 5'6", big soft breasts, nice curvy body, pale blue eyes, cute little freckles on her face. You would think that a beautiful girl like Ella wouldn't be BFFs with another beauty like Nicole. 9 out of 10 times, you'd be right, but Ella had no competition. She was beyond competition. Ella could have been friends with the biggest bimbo there ever was, or she could have been hanging around with a fucking Swedish bikini team. She could have been sleepwalking in her PJs on a Victoria's Secret catwalk at a New Year's show for all I care. No matter the situation, Ella was always the one you looked at first. But yeah, Nicola was a bombshell too, and she was something else entirely. The four of us started hanging out together, started going to parties, hanging out after school, going to the movies, and slowly Nicole and I got very close. She had an amazing sense of humor, knew a lot about subcultures and shit. Finally, after a night out together, Pete and Ella decided to go to Ella's room by themselves. Turns out Ella's roommate was back at home for a family emergency or something like that, and Nicole and I kissed. Soon after, we officially became a couple. After what felt like an eternity, I wasn't interested in Ella that much. It felt good, not feeling like cheating on my bro. And Nicole was amazing in bed. In all things related to intimacy, she was a dream come true. The fantasies she was into were mind-boggling. The things she wore, stockings, blah, 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 surprised me with wake up, blah, blah, blah. I'm just not going to get into that. Some nights I would think, how the fuck am I supposed to regain my appetite after this? A couple hours later, there she was again, wearing something really good looking, doing things you would lose your mind for, the places we had intimacy, and the positions we tried were pure. Yeah, this gets pretty graphic. I'm going to skip a lot of this. It felt like half of my daily diet was being used for snooking it juice. I'm going to regret saying that. She wouldn't use protection. No, sir. Where's the fun in that, she says. And she would always want more and more. Good thing I was fit and young. You can't do some of the things she asked for when you're 29. I would do things, and I couldn't feel my tongue. The girl was a queen. There was no stopping until she said enough. Wow, this goes on and on. I was scared shitless if there would come a time when I'm simply not enough, but she was loyal and honest as fuck. Never even flirted with the other guys, let alone cheat on me. I was really skeptical at first. It's a complete opposite of what you would expect. I somehow raised the issue with a delicate, yes, curious manner. I was treading lightly. Didn't want to offend her. You're mine, Anon, and I'm yours, she told me. Nothing will change that until such a time comes that we both decide otherwise, she would furiously declare. If there ever was a woman made out of a wife material, Nicole was the ultimate prototype. Her understanding of a relationship was beyond belief, and her connection to me was unbreakable. She was so incorruptible. She would straight up hit the guys trying to chat her up in her faces. You come near me again, and I swear to God, I will use my entire boyfriend like a retractable baton and fuck you in the ass with him. That's an actual fucking quote I heard her shout at some poor kid. Holy shit. And there I was, standing like a beta F-slur who just won the lottery. My diamond, hard, so whatever, pulsating to her commanding voice. Jesus. Then she kisses me like there's no tomorrow, finds an empty room in a house full of partying people, hangs my sock on the doorknob, and does her thing. Yeah, that was Nicole in a nutshell. So I've never imagined there would be trouble at the paradise, but come summertime, something else happened. My dad asked one of his old friends in LA for an internship position on my behalf. His friend accepted me to his firm, and while everyone was having a great time, I was supposed to work at the accounting department of this design office in LA. This meant that I wasn't going to spend my summer satisfying Nicole, or doing anything fun for that matter. Before she went to the airport, Nicole kissed me as if we weren't going to see each other again, like ever. You don't forget who you belong to, mister, she told me with tearful eyes. I won't, Nicole. I promise. Man, the love and care this girl had shown me was something else. Even though I told her numerous times that I loved her, and I meant it, I had this feeling that my love for her didn't even come close to what she felt towards me. You take care of yourself, you hear? And she left, hesitantly walking backwards to her bus to the airport. Pete had already gone home previous weekend, so I was all by myself, walking around in this college ghost town, on my way back to the dorm, wanting to pack my stuff ASAP and get ready to my flight to LA. And there she was, walking towards me. Ella. Hey, sup, Anon? She greeted me with a warm smile. Hey, Ella, I just sent off Nicole. Ah, you guys, she cried, right? With a snappy laugh. I know she cried. Ha, well, you know her, right? She loves you, Anon, that's why. Ella reached out and stroked my arm, showing that she cared. For the first time in quite a while, I suddenly felt a jolt, a rush. It was like the time when I first saw her up close. As her cold hands brushed my skin, my pupils dilated, like the first sip of a morning coffee. A surge of a small dose of adrenaline hit my body. I quickly broke out of her spell. I had to. So, where are you off to, Ella? Oh, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I'll have to see my parents in LA. What? We might be on the same flight. That was the most S-word neutral thing I could think of at that time. You serious? What are you doing in LA? Ella asked with a delighted curiosity, her big green eyes glimmering with excitement. I have this job my dad arranged for me. I'm not exactly going there for a vacation, I pout. Don't worry, Anon. I'll keep you company. It will be fine, I promise. Cheerfully reassuring me. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could say anything. Oh, look at the time. I gotta go now, but hey, see you in LA, if not earlier. She winked at me. She waved and started walking in the other direction. After mumbling some non-intelligible verbal expressions like, hey, yeah, what? Oh, I waved at her and watched her disappear around the corner. And as I was trying to make sense of what just happened, Nicole's teary-eyed face kept coming into my mind. I felt like a complete asshole. What the fuck am I so excited about? I mean, Ella is my bro's girlfriend. She's best friends with my girlfriend. What am I thinking? Why am I suddenly feeling awkward again? I tried not to think about it and started walking away. The next morning was even harder for me. We were on the same bus to the airport, and when it was time to check in for our flight, we were side by side. Naturally, you can't ask to be seated elsewhere when the person you're trying to avoid is right next to you. I couldn't believe that I was thinking about being seated elsewhere too. Ella was not only a friend, she was the only person I had to think of almost as a sister. I kept texting Nicole to make sure that I was okay, reminding myself of who I belonged to. I was scared because it wasn't helping at all, acting like everything is all right. I boarded the plane with Ella. After chatting for a bit with Ella, she fell asleep. After some time, I did too. When I woke up, her head was on my shoulder, and my head was on hers. Her fragrant hair was all over my face. She smelled of vanilla and berries. Her gorgeous scent was so enchanting. I started getting the strongest stiffy of my life. I was unsure about what to do. Do I slowly back off? Do I keep leaning against her head and savor the moment? What the fuck am I thinking? Why is this even an issue? Now, I know there must be a lot of you out there calling me a beta F slur, but if bros before hoes doesn't apply here, then where else? The only thing I was able to do was to raise my head out of her hair and sit upright as best as I could. I couldn't bring myself to pull away from her. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, she mumbled in her sleep and put her hand on my chest, embracing me as if she was sleeping next to Pete. Her beautiful hand was lightly hanging onto my shirt. Her cold fingertips gently grazing my bare chest. This is torture. Pete's voice is ringing in my ears. I love her, man. I fucking love her. The time he told me at a party, watching Ella from the other side of the room. With an admiration and love I haven't seen before on any man's face. Then I remember Nicole again. And the discernment and the loyalty she has displayed time and time again in the face of temptation. I felt like shit. Concentrated, WC clogging brick of shit. An excruciating hour later, she woke up. She blinked her eyes rapidly as she tried to sober up and yawned and stretched. I was losing my mind to the sight of her delicate body as every muscle on her body vibrated and contracted. I was trying to force myself to look away, not notice her, but I couldn't. She looked at me with her sleepy green eyes. Oh, sorry, Anon. I get very untidy in my sleep, she chuckled. Huh, no worries. I tried to match her chuckle nervously. Shortly after that, we landed. Her parents came to welcome her. She introduced me to them. They were nice people, really warm and welcoming. Her mom, after learning that I was going to be alone in LA, invited me to their place. I kindly declined their invitation, telling that my father has already rented an apartment for me. Well, next week, you must at least come have dinner with us then, Ella ordered. Okay then, deal. I accepted her offer with a million questions and ideas racing in my mind. Shortly after we parted ways, I called Nicole and talked to her for an hour, trying to remind myself of who I am, and texted Pete, telling him about Ella and I were on the same flight to LA. I hated myself for feeling that an explanation was necessary. Hey, Pete, don't worry, buddy. My my thing down there, my pee-pee, wasn't fully erect the whole time. She was sleeping on my shoulder, sort of thing. It got hard only when she started stretching her muscles. It's aight. Fuck. I settled at home. Met people at work. It's boring, but it's okay. I'm in LA. Lots of things to do. Lots of free time when I'm not working 9 to 5. And it's only part-time, so I only work 3 days a week. A week later, Ella picks me up from work, and we go to her house like I promised. And everything went better than expected. Her parents are really cool. Lots of drinking, talking, joking around. She has a younger brother, Jake. He is 11. He is a nerd, but he is always handsome in the same way Ella is beautiful. Fucking little man is on his way to becoming a motherfucking 10 out of 10 alpha. I start talking to him. We hit it off really well. I start playing video with him in his room. Ella joins in. I'm like, what? Turns out Ella is a hardcore gamer. Then the feeling returns once more. Ella is sitting between me and Jake, and I'm trying to hide my stiffy under a N64 controller, feeling like I'm cheating on Nicole again. I start drooling as she kicks her asses in Mario Kart. Oh well. Ella rubs Jake's head, and she turns to me and winks. I don't know what you guys were expecting. I forget how to speak English as I see her smug face next to mine, her piercing green eyes, her sharp, pointy nose a couple inches away from me, her cheeks red like apples, the rush and excitement of the game, tiny drops of sweat rolling down on her delicate neck. My mouth is wide open. She starts laughing when she sees my dumb as fuck face. I only play adventure games, Monkey Island, such. I try to bail out. Oh, is that right, Mr. Thurpwood? Ella teases me. Oh, MFG, I'm about to die. Her mom calls us for dessert and coffee. I stay for another hour. Then her dad drives me back to my place. Next week, she called me and asked if I want to hang out. I was afraid of how fast I responded yes. She showed me the sights. We went to her favorite place, eating ice cream, hanging out in cafes and shit. About a month and a half into my stay in LA, I met a couple of her old friends. I could easily see that some of her high school boyfriends were still in her love with her, losing their minds over how lucky they are to see her once again. Some of them even eyeballed me before Ella told them that I was just a friend. Just a friend, she said. And for no reason at all, I felt as if my heart imploded. What's wrong with what she said? Yeah, of course, I was just a friend. It wasn't like I was friend-zoned or anything. She had a boyfriend. I had a girlfriend. So I was just a friend. But I was heartbroken nonetheless. We decided to go to the beach the next week. So next week, 5 of Elle's friends and I were at the beach. 9 out of 10, 10 out of girls with thongs all around us. Everyone is like, who gives a shit? I was the only fuck checking out every piece of ass around us. Ella was wearing those loose summer pants and an old XL white shirt. We find a nice spot, get settled. Then Ella starts getting undressed for the beach. And every person within a 50 feet radius starts looking. 10 out of 10 girls start cringing. I can see how jealous they feel. Men are, I don't even know what word that is. Then I say, fuck it. I'll have to see her body eventually. No escape, and I look at her. Just a pair of jet black bikinis. In them, the most unquestionably beautiful woman there ever was. Her wavy auburn hair streams to her broad but willowy shoulders. Sharp sunlight is glimmering on her bright green eyes. Her face is already tanned. Reddish spots are formed over her soft cheeks, her petite pink lips, and her sharp, small diamond chin, both moisturized by tiny droplets of sweat. The elongated and tender tendons on her neckline flows to the most beautiful and deep jugular notch, surrounded by her sharp clavicles. And then I see them. And then he starts talking about her chest area. Not going to get into that. They stand at attention, he says, amused by the incompetence of frail gravity. He gets into her chest a little bit more, and he's really, really admiring her. And he says, and I admire her chest like they have seen the most beautiful work of art ever created. Then I look down, see her belly, and she's really lean and fits, and that's just the most age-appropriate, just not weird way to describe it. Like, this guy really gets into depth with all of this. Like, Jesus. And he starts to talk about her crotch area, and you can imagine where that goes. And he says she's tanned, and Jesus Christ, I'm just keep reading this and just worse and worse words. But he is really, really loving on this girl, as if you already can't tell. And then let's continue. My eyes were fixed on Ella. Ella looks at me. She leans in with a funny smile on her face. Her breasts come closer to my face than ever before. You are staring, Anon, she says calmly while giggling. My face turns into a Mexican tomato plantation. She walks by me towards the ocean, looks back with a smile warmer than midday sun. You coming? And runs into the lukewarm water while bouncing her perfect body. I'm in a minute. Yeah. I wasn't about to display the biggest tent of my life in front of everyone. She voices a snappy laugh and starts backstroking away from the beach. I sit there and start reciting the multiplication table, as if I was already with Nicole in bed, trying to delay the inevitable. Moments later, I join her. Sorry about that before. I apologize sheepishly. Haha, don't worry about it. You should have seen Pete's face when he first saw me in underwear. And we're back to where we started. Good thing my tent is now underwater. I try to speak, but all I'm doing is keeping my mouth open without saying anything. Ella is laughing hysterically. Are you serious, Anon? So serious how? Are you seriously thinking of me in my underwear right now? It comes and goes. What the fuck am I saying? Ella laughs and splashes water to my face. Come on, underwear boy, swim. She starts swimming. I have nothing else to do but follow her. A few moments later, she stops swimming and turns to me. Hey, did you, call Nicole? You guys talking? Yes? Buzzkill. Yeah, why? Good, you keep doing that. Then you can imagine me in my underwear all you want. Okay. She chuckles like a prankster and starts swimming back. My mouth was like a keyboard with coffee spilled all over it. I followed her back to the beach. I spent the rest of the day thinking about Nicole, thinking about Pete, and thinking about Ella. I really didn't have to think about Ella since she was suntanning her gorgeous body next to me. Before everybody went home, Ella asked me if I wanted to hang out with her next weekend. I accepted, naturally. After I went home, my dad called, told me to get ready for a trip. What? Yeah, apparently I was supposed to go to Hong Kong. Turns out my dad is more connected than I previously believed. I had just a week left to spend in LA. Then it was time for Hong Kong. After I spoke to my dad, Pete called. His voice was all fucked up. Told me that Ella broke up with her a week ago. Oh. I switched to bro mode and started calling Ella a bitch and whatnot. Dude, stop, he said calmly. She was right. This wasn't going anywhere. How? What? Look, Anon, I have nothing that I can offer to her. Pete started explaining. He told me how Ella was smarter than him and how it wasn't about relations or intimacy or being an alpha and all that shit. Basically, like everything else about her, Ella was not exactly your usual sorority girl. She was in her own alpha omega fuck you club. And Pete had nothing more than 4 months worth of fashion class and a few dirty jokes to show for an admission. Anyways, thought you should know, man. Take care. And he hung up. I was terrified when I realized my first thought was, now what do I do with Nicole? And my next, what the fuck am I supposed to do in Hong Kong? Next week, I decided to ask Ella about what happened before we went to the museum. We meet, kiss, and hug. Sup, Anon? She's cheerful as usual. Sup, Ella? So, Pete, he called me. Her head becomes apologetically heavy. Sorry for not telling you, Anon. Didn't want you to think less of me before speaking to Pete first. Why? Ella looks at me, feeling stuck between her friendship with me and my friendship with Pete. Wasn't working, Anon. Things don't always work out. What did Pete say about me? Only good things. What did you tell him? Me? I was just trying to be a bro, I guess. Ella pouts. Sorry for putting you in that situation. This is the first time I've seen Ella unable to drive the conversation. She looks way too submissive. I feel bad. Hey, look, it's okay. It's not my place to say anything. I try to comfort her. Ella looks at me, almost waiting for my approval. Then I say, let's move on, shall we? Besides, we have a date. What? Ella blushes. I realize what I've just said and how it might have been so easily misunderstood. Okay. She doesn't push it and saves me from my own demise. We get inside the Natural History Museum and start wandering around aimlessly, without talking. Couldn't tell her that I was leaving for Hong Kong 2 days from now. Both our minds are elsewhere. We get to the prehistoric section, see the dinosaur skeletons, and no, they don't walk. Then we get to the early humans or some other stuff, I don't know. I don't remember why, but we stopped in front of this Neanderthal skull on display. We just look at it. Kind of reminds me of something. You know, this looks somewhat familiar, I say without looking at Ella. Ella doesn't say anything at first, and then she busts out laughing. She loudly cracks an evil laughter in my face of the fucking hall. She looks at me with a funny evil face, with a crackled, badly impersonated manly voice. I am a powerful demonic force. I am the harbinger of your doom. Let me hear you scream in terror. I'm melting right now. I remember. She gives me a warm smile and starts laughing. I remember why that skull looks so familiar. She's fucking doing Murray from fucking Monkey Island 3. My life is complete. Everyone is looking at us like, WTF is wrong with these people? I get so excited my hands start shaking. Oh, I think I did it a bit too loud, she whispers as she keeps chuckling. You play MI3? I ask her, stammering. Oh, I love it, Anon. She grins. I figured you would remember Murray, you being the adventure gamer and all. I have nothing to say. At that moment, Ella stopped being a crush I could hardly admit to, and turned into my life's goal I have no idea what to do with. We start talking about Monkey Island, then Full Throttle, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, all LucasArts games, old school adventures. We were cracking jokes, impersonating key characters, acting out funny moments. It got to the point of singing theme songs. That's when we realized we were sitting next to a prehistoric animal in the middle of a museum, talking about weird games and such like nerds. Security is giving us funny looks. We laughed about it and decided to leave. It was getting late. Sun was about to set. Hey, Anon, come home with me. Have dinner with us again. Ella grabbed my arm and asked me cheerfully. I'd love that. And we went to her house once more. Her parents gladly welcomed me to their home. Jake was in a summer camp or some shit. During dinner, all we could talk about was games and anime, comics, the whole nerd 9 yards. Her mom and dad were giving each other smirky looks. I didn't care. I was losing my mind. Ella, the perfect girl. Ella invited me to her room, and that was the first time I've seen Ella's room. Anime posters on the walls, cute bed sheets with girly flowers and stuff, a whole bookcase full of vidya, her neatly folded clothes everywhere, a full repertoire of fashion Pete studied to understand for a whole semester, a cute and girly elegance, and a hardcore and tomboyish geekdom. The best of both worlds, if there was ever such a thing. I'm at a loss for words, I declare with my mouth wide open. Ella chuckles and playfully punches my shoulder. Shut up. What were you expecting? Wall-to-wall posters of some boy band? Huh. No, I love it. I look around with a huge grin on my face. Good, now I'm gonna beat your ass in Mario Kart again. Sit down. As she forcibly seats me on the floor and in front of a small TV, huge amounts of cute hearts gush out of all of my bodily orifices. Ella goes over to Jake's room and brings the N64, and we start playing. This is heaven. She kicks my ass in Mario Kart again. We switch to SF. She kicks my ass yet again. Next, we try to split screen 007, and guess what? She kicks my ass again. She fires up the PS and starts showing me MGS. I've never played MGS until then. Yeah, don't judge, okay? She starts telling me about the story, going crazy excited, shows me the controls and starts watching as I fumble around, laughs at my stupidity and ineptness every now and then. I play and play, lose myself, immerse myself in the excellence of MGS. Then I pause the game and realize that she has fallen asleep with her head on my shoulder. Her sweet vanilla and berry scent filling my lungs once more. She looks peaceful and happy. I quit the game and put down the controller. I gently embrace her exquisite body, putting my arms behind her back and under her beautiful legs. The thin veneer of her skirt rolls back, revealing her thighs. I carefully carry her to bed, tuck her in, just look at her, and appreciate her unbelievable beauty for a moment. It's 3 a.m. Her parents must already be asleep. I don't have any way of returning home. I turn off the TV and the lights, grab a pack of neatly folded shirts and use them as a makeshift pillow, and curl up on the floor. It's hard to fall asleep. The floor is too uncomfy. I hear shuffling behind me. I figured she must have been turning around in her sleep. Then I feel her hand on my back, then over my shoulder, and she rests it on my chest, pulling a thin sheet of blanket over both of us. Her small feet play around and curl up next to mine as she spoons me. I grab her cold hand and press it firmly against my chest. She mumbles and plants her face at the back of my neck, and I fall asleep, madly in love. The next morning when I woke up, she was still sleeping. During the night, we ended up facing each other. When I opened my eyes, I found myself looking at her angelic face. Her hair was all over me. Her hand was still holding onto my shirt, like the time it was back on the plane. I could feel her breath on my lips. I wanted to stay there. More than anything, I wanted to lay next to her forever, and I wanted to kiss her so much. But all I could think was Nicole's face. I carefully reached for my phone in my pocket. Nicole left me a text. "Hey you, wanted to surprise you before you go to Hong Kong. I'm in LA. Call me when you wake up. I love you." Smiley face. Oh shit, I go pale. My mouth dries up. My heart starts beating to a fight or flight moment. I gently put Ella's hand down and back off without waking her up. I grab my things and exit the house without anyone noticing. I call Nicole. She tells me to meet her on Venice Beach. Grab a bite to eat on the way. Coffee to wake up. The moment I see her, I realize the mistake I've made. My hair's all messed up. I'm still wearing yesterday's clothes. I didn't even brush my teeth, and my entire body smells like Ella's perfume. It's too late. She sees me and starts running towards me and jumps in my arms. She digs her lips into my mouth, holds me tightly, starts kissing me. Then she slows down and then completely stops. Her hands and arms lose their grasp on me. Slowly, she pulls away. She gently pushes me back to take a better look at me. She sees the guilt and fear on my face. Her pupils dilate. She starts turning red. Her eyes fill with fury and anger like nothing I've seen before. Her right hand pulls back and flies into my face. It lands perfectly. My ears start ringing. My vision is blurred. She doesn't talk. I don't have anything to say for myself. I just stay there with half of my face completely numb. Unable to face her. Unable to look her in the eyes. She slowly turns around and starts walking. Looks back. "You come in?" She looks at me with tear-filled, mad eyes. I obey and start following her. We sit on a bench overlooking Venice Beach. We sit there for a few minutes before she finally asks me, "Did you sleep with her?" She doesn't look at me. "No." "Did you kiss her?" "No." She stops for a moment. I realize what's coming and it's too late. She turns to me with a face full of tears of anger. You're in love with her?" I can't say anything. I just sit there, my head as low as it can go. "For how fucking long, Anon?" Her voice trembles. "How long?" she asks again, barely audible. "I don't know." She hesitates for a moment and then starts talking again. "I should have known. For the past month, you were all Ella could talk about, Anon." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I wake up to the shock of this revelation. She talked to you about me? I ask her, with a skeptical and messed up face. Yeah. She opens her eyes wide, sarcastically. Can you believe that? You became her number one friend, her confidant, her BFF. She violently finger quotes her snappish remark. I don't have anything to say to Nicole. And I can't be angry at her for getting close to you, Anon. She stopped. But you. She gets close to my face and puts her index finger sharply to my chest. You should have known better. Tapping my chest with her finger. Answer me, Anon, she whispers. Answer me. What? I turn to her. She jumped back with a surprise. This was the first time she has seen me scream at anyone, let alone her. What do you want me to say, Nicole? That I love her? That I care for her? That no matter how I feel about you, I can control how I also feel about her? That even when you and I were just friends and Ella was with Pete, I couldn't help but feel a strong desire for her? Nicole didn't talk. She just stood there and watched me talk with a heartbroken face. What do you want me to say, Nicole? What do you want me to say? That the first thing I felt was relief when Pete told me that she broke up with him? Okay, she whispered and stared into the distance. We continued to talk, getting angry at each other at times, but it was more upsetting than vexing. After an hour of furious argument, we were tired. Even when pissed off, Nicole didn't hold back her love for me. She got close to me and put her head on my shoulder, and we started watching the sunset. You know what, Anon? She spoke kindly, like a whisper. There isn't enough intimate tricks in the world to keep you away from Ella. I froze. I felt like a sharp object has been pierced through my chest, and there isn't enough small jokes, bouquets of flowers, or boxes of chocolates that Pete can come to her door with. She sighed, so he can hold on to Ella. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, and it's all right, Anon. No matter what we do, you guys were made for each other. She spoke as she gave it into reality. So you go ahead. I told you that you were mine until we both decided otherwise. And we both decided otherwise. You know that. I sat there, with Nicole's head on my shoulder, staring blankly into the crowd of people on Venice Beach, knowing that there's no amount of rights I can make to fix the wrong I did her. The person who loves me so blindly, so vigorously, that even in the moment of her defeat, she still wanted what was best for me. Just do one last thing for me, she whispered. I turned my face to her and kissed her with a passion like I never have. She held my face in her small hands and broke our bond. Go, she said, trying to hold back her tears. Go before I change my mind. Go. She started to cry. Holding her hand, I got up. I hesitantly started stepping away. Our arms stretched and reached their length as our fingertips grazed each other and broke away. I started walking backwards, looking at her, realizing what I have done, feeling like shit. Nicole wasn't looking at me. Her head dropped. The palms of her hands were trying to hide the tears. She was quietly sobbing. I gasped for air and forced myself away from her, trying not to think about it. Running away like an asshole. I must have walked for 3 hours, not knowing what to do. It was getting late. I finally made my decision. I hailed a cab and gave the driver Ella's home address. I arrive at Ella's house. I approach her door, not knowing what to do. I ring the bell. The door stops. My heart stops when I see her. She lowers the cell phone from her ear, looks at me. That was Nicole. She shakes the phone in her hand. Her beautiful green eyes are bloodshot, tears running down her face. She closes the door. Ella, I breathlessly shriek. I turn my back to her door. I start walking and then collapse. I start crying like a bitch. This is just too much. First Nicole and now Ella. The door quietly clicks open again. The afternoon sun casts a shadow over me. The shadow eagerly waits. What did she say to you? I can barely speak. That you love me more than her? You stupid fuck. A cold hand grabs my collar and pulls me with force. I stumble and walk to Ella's door, following her stern pace. Tears and snot on my face, ugly as fuck. As I pass through the doorway, she turns around, violently slams the door with a flick of her hand, and pins me to the shut door with force, stuffs my face with her lips. My heart is beating like a jackhammer. She just stays frozen. Her lips nailed to mine, her chilled hands hanging from my collar. Her intense kiss gently becomes tender, and she stops kissing me. Clumsily wipes my wet face with her hands, sporadically chuckling her heart out while crying tears of joy. You look like shit, she laughs nervously. I smile and laugh. Come on, you need a shower. She drags me to her bathroom and gives me fresh towels. I take a shower for an hour, trying to calm my nerves, trying to make sense to this calamity. I take way longer than usual, knowing that when I get out, I'll have to face her and have a talk. I finally get out and wrap myself with her towels. Go to her room. Ella is in her PJs. Her hair is wet. She must have had a shower too. She's sitting on her bed all curled up, holding onto her legs. She has a deeply concerned look on her face. I sit next to her and stare at the wall, expecting a million questions. She simply says, "Go ahead. Say it." I don't understand. I mean, say what? Say it. She tells me again with a calm voice. I love you. Good. She puts her hands on my face and her lips on mine and gives me the warmest, most gentle kiss I could have imagined. We fall back to the bed. She embraces me. While her freezing hands caress my skin like ice, her hot, soft lips brush against my face like a velvet cloth. I hold her tightly. She opens her arms and lays back, presents herself to me with an innocent smile on her face. I take my time and study with her. I don't want to rush anything. My parents are gone for the day. We're all alone. She sings playfully. And then you know where this is going, and I'm not going to read this anymore because this is a lot of physical stuff, and yeah, they get freaky, majorly freaky. And I'm not reading this because we're just not that type of channel. This is a sad and scary stories channel, and so yeah, geez, I'm just reading through this, skimming through. Nope, not gonna read this. But apparently they love it. Obviously, this guy's in love with her. OP's in love with her, and Ella seems to like him. I can't tell off of Ella, but then it was almost dawn when they woke up. Ella woke up with me. I have to tell you something, I told her. She looked at me, scared and upset. I have to go to Hong Kong for 2 months. Today. I won't be able to spend the rest of the summer with you. Whatever she was expecting, hearing this news relieved her. She sighed and planted a passionate kiss on my cheek. It's okay. We'll see each other in school, she whispered to me softly. After all, I have you now. I couldn't have been happier. Hong Kong seemed like a punishment after everything that has happened, but I knew Ella would wait for me. Ella sent me away, convinced me that if we spent even more time, or if she would come to LAX to see me off, the distance and time would be even harder to bear. I agreed. As I was dragging my feet to leave her, I kissed her so much she had to physically push me away, giggling with a sleepy face. Go now. Go or you will miss your flight. I went home, hastily packed my bags, and left for the airport. All I could think of was her. The cab driver had to ask me where to like 3 times. After I landed and got settled in Hong Kong, we started talking on Skype. It was new back then and the connection was shitty, but it was way better than nothing. Every day we would talk, sometimes for hours. There was so much time difference. I was almost an entire day ahead of LA, but we made it work. Our intimacy was not limited to just intimacy in real life, and our friendship was more than just ambiguous flirting. The things we shared, the moments we lived, even though they were digital and thousands of miles apart, I was still in heaven. A month later, I came home from work one day. and there was no response to my calls. I figured she must be busy, or out, or something else came up. Didn't think much of it, and went on with the rest of my day. Next day, same thing. Well, unless you are a seriously paranoid person, you don't think of worst case scenarios until your buddy calls you. Didn't remember how I responded to that. I still don't. I only know what Pete, Mom, and Dad told me. Turns out, I dropped the phone and was unreachable for an hour. Don't know what happened in that hour. Then they say that I called my folks. By then, Pete told them already, and they knew I wasn't going to be able to make my way back on my own. As I was speaking to or screaming to Mom, Dad was already buying plane tickets. I didn't realize my mom was crying on the phone, knowing her son was in so much panic and she was unable to help me. I was screaming so much, my voice was all but gone. At some point, my dad picked up the phone, trying to calm me down. Years later, I asked him once, just once, what happened that day. Never seen a man that white as he told me what happened. How terrified he was over how I was feeling. I asked him because the only thing I could remember was Pete telling me, "She's gone. She's gone." I talked to Pete one more time before Dad arrived. That I do remember. You go numb after so much pain and start behaving like a robot. He knew I wasn't going to be at the ceremony with him. We talked about things no one wants to know. But you just have to know. Like what happens to a car traveling at 60 miles an hour when it gets rear-ended by another car. Starts spinning and stops when it wraps around a telephone pole. There was nothing anyone would want to look at. No open casket. Just a box. While her family was burying Ella, I was on a plane back to the States. Didn't have the power to go to LA and be there with her family. Didn't want to go back to college and be all by myself. I just wanted to go home. A year has passed since Ella's death. Mom and Dad were trying to play it cool. Pete was the only one keeping me sane. He too was affected by Ella's passing. But he was stronger. He didn't love Ella the way I did. Nicole was keeping her distance, avoiding me as best as she could. On the anniversary of her death, I decided to visit Ella's grave. Got on a plane to LA. I still remember the first time I walked through those cemetery gates. It's never easy to visit the dead. I found her and stayed there for an hour, just crying, not knowing what to say. I'm not a religious person, and I don't believe in the afterlife. I had this feeling inside me that no matter what I said, she wasn't there to see or hear. After a while, a boy walked up to me. Her brother. Young Jake, too, came to visit her sister. We hugged. "You should come and visit my folks, Anon. They'll be happy to see you." I accepted his kind invitation. When we arrived at their home, the air was thick, filled with sorrow. Her mother smiled when she saw me, held me in her arms as if I was her own blood. "Oh, am I so happy to see you," she cried. They were relieved they didn't have to be alone that day. Ella's father was already half drunk, but he was joyful when we started talking about Ella. Jake was sitting between his mom and dad. They wouldn't let go of his hands the entire time, drawing power from knowing that they were not alone, and that Jake is still here. After talking about Ella, reminiscing what little time I was able to spend with her, her mom showed me into Ella's room. The room was left untouched. Nothing was changed since I've been there more than a year ago. Even her neatly folded clothes were still on her chair, her video archived, her anime posters on the wall. Her mom opened a drawer and took out a CD case and a letter and handed them to me. "I believe these are for you, Anon." She put them into my violently shaking hands. She kisses me on the forehead and left the room. I sat on the bed in which we had the chance to spend a single night together. A single night. I looked at the CD case and immediately burst into tears I was holding back before, Crying my eyes out, I started reading her letter. The letter she couldn't send to Hong Kong. Pic-related, letter, and the CD case, and we'll get into those in just a moment. After I read the letter, I was in the fetus position on her bed, crying. The love and the loss were too much. Someone slowly sat next to me, and I felt a familiar hand on my face. I put my head on her lap while Nicole caressed my hair and calmed me down. "I'm here," she whispered, and hugged me as she too quietly cried. And then the OP posts 2 pictures, one of the curse of Monkey Island and the inside, and then a picture of the letter. And let's read the letter that Ella was supposedly going to send to the OP. It reads, "I hope you're doing well in Hong Kong. I miss you. And I'm cheerfully assuming that you miss me too." Smiley face. "But surprise, I got something for you. Unfortunately, this was the only copy I could find. It's a pirated version I got from ex-Bulgarian guy on eBay. He works just fine. If you get bored and tour longing becomes unbearable, imagine yourself in the Caribbeans, and I'll help you save Ekin from the curse. Love from LA. Your hooray. Ella." And then the final post from the OP reads as follows. "Next semester, Nicole and I got closer. She stopped avoiding me and we became friends again. She understood what I've been through, and although I've broken her heart, she knew I didn't mean to. She knew how much I loved Ella. She knew the love I felt for Ella didn't mean I didn't value her. 2 years later, we started dating again. Moved to Chicago together. Another 2 years after that, we got married. And I slowly forgot about Ella. While organizing old stuff at our house, I came across Ella's letter and the MI3 CD case. When I started feeling bad, she convinced me to write the story down so I could get it off my chest. "I don't want to read it," she said with a sad face. "It'll be too much for me, but you have to write it down. Her love and care were heavenly. You need this, Anon." I accepted. Last night, after I finished writing my story, Nicole convinced me to frame Ella's letter. I looked at her. I was almost about to cry. She gently held my face in her hands. "It's good to remember, Anon." And she planted a tender kiss on my lips. She was a good person. You loved her and she loved you. I don't even know what to say. I framed the letter and put it on my nightstand. We got under the blankets on a cold winter night. We cuddled. She embraced me and placed her head on my chest and softly whispered into my ear, "You're mine, Anon, and I'm yours." And as I've said before, she was almost asleep, with an amorous smile on her face. Until such a time comes we both decide otherwise, nothing will change that. And I fell asleep next to the woman I loved, embracing the woman that loves me. And this is the end of my story. And I can kind of see why people call it one of the greatest green texts of all time. I mean, it's just such an emotional roller coaster. It starts out with him loving her, and then it ends out working out. And the day they do the deed, he leaves, and then she dies in a horrible car accident. Just wow. And it just feels so real to me and true because, I mean, most people during a traumatic time can't remember the details. And during the details, he couldn't portray it that well. So it seemed very true to me, very authentic and very sad. But just wow. That's just a crazy story. I mean, this was not a usual Snook scary story for you, but it's a green text classic, so I thought I had to read it for you guys. And I found a interesting post of someone saying, taking a look at the Ballad of Ella, true story or fake. And so we're going to get into that for everyone who thinks that's a fake story versus true. So let's get into this post. Someone says, "In case you have not read the Ballad of Ella yet, I highly recommend you do so. Now, if you did, you might wonder whether or not that story truly happened. While I cannot say so without certainty, I did try my best to find out, as there didn't seem to be any information in that regard. Let's start with what information we have. The original post was from 2015, and Anon said 10 years ago when he was 19 and a freshman. It might be he is referring to the start of the story, freshman year being 10 years ago, or the second semester, i.e. the start of the story being 10 years ago. Depending on that, the year Ella died would be either 2005 or 2006. Pete had taken fashion classes for 4 months. Summer came, Anon and Ella spent about 2 months together in LA. At one point he writes, that night, Ella wasn't a couple months old friend. It's safe to assume the time frame of the story is about half a year. That puts Ella's death somewhere between the end of June and the end of August. She died in a car accident in California, somewhere in or around Los Angeles. As Anon seemed to lodge so far from Ella's place, he had to be picked up and dropped off every time with no other option. We cannot be 100% sure it was Los Angeles. Finally, we cannot be sure that Ella was her real name. Even though it was on the letter, it might be short for Elizabeth or other similar names. What we were looking for, a young 18 to 21-year-old with a possible nickname Ella who died in a car accident in 2005 or 2006 in California. Give him props so far. This is crazy detective work. And then he continues saying, looking for Los Angeles car accident, death 2005, or fatal car accident Los Angeles 2005 teen yields no success. Narrowing the search to articles from the years 2005 to 2006 doesn't turn up anything useful either. Neither does including all of California. Browsing obituaries for the year 2005 will show that no Ella under 35 died. Neither did one in 2004, 2006, or 2007. Given she might not actually be named Ella, I started looking into death records of people aged 18 to 21 who died in California. Lo and behold, about 200 people between 18 and 21 found their untimely death in 2005, but not one of them bears a name you can shorten to Ella, save for 2 Michelles, who died on the 10th of August at age 18, but was cremated and had no brother, and said she had a half dozen sisters, which already rules her out. And another Michelle who died end of July 2005. Problem with her is that she doesn't appear anywhere else. No car accident news, no obituary, nothing. Also, the story makes no mention of a birthday, which is important because this Ella would have had hers a week later. All that and the fact that she was only 17, a bit too young to go off state to university, makes it unlikely this is the story's Ella. Death records for 2006 yielded about 250 kids between 18 and 21 who died. Only one of them could have had a name that would fit Ella. That person last name was Elizabeth, age 21, who died on August 29th in a car accident. Though it was no perfect match, in the story, Anon was told that Ella had died or been rear-ended by another car, while this Ella was hit by a wrong-way driver. It can, however, very well be said that she tried to evade the oncoming car, which led to it hitting the rear, spinning her into a telephone pole. I'd count that as rear-ending. Did I mention this was in the interstate? Ella was hit at 60 miles an hour. Either way, both accidents ended in a way where an open casket doesn't seem like an option. She also had a sister, not a brother from what I found, which is a detail too big to get wrong. Conclusively, it can be said that the story might actually be true. Unlikely? Yes, but there is a person who would fit Ella's age, time, and the cause of death. Personally, I thought it was fake until I went back and took a closer look at the time the original post was made, which made me question if the events really took place in 2005. The person fits nearly all of the criteria so well that even though Ella as a person seems impossible, I cannot deny the possibility of the story being true. I doubt it though. And so, I mean, a lot of you guys were going to speculate in the comments either way, so that kind of shortens it. Someone did the research. But I didn't mean to, jump the gun so fast. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Ella's death or speculate on it. But I just thought it was worth adding so you guys didn't need to do it in the comments. But very different story than usual. I mean, it was more like a romance novel for 95% of it. So did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not enjoy it? What were your guys' thoughts? I just thought it was a very good story, and I thought it was worth the read. because it was just so different than usual. I mean, it was not a sad story, or not a scary story per se, but it was definitely a sad story. And I just thought it was a great story, to be honest. But her death just came out of nowhere and was so crushing. And the OP was a great writer. I mean, the dialogue was great. The descriptions of the girls was a little bit weird, but what can you do? It's 4chan after all. But yeah, people classify that as one of the greatest green texts ever. So comment down below if you haven't heard it before. I've never read it before, so that was new for me. Hopefully new for you. And if you enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, join me on Patreon, follow me on Spotify, follow me on Instagram, all that jazz. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy other videos on the channel, so check out those. I appreciate you so much. Comment down below your thoughts on the video. I read every single comment. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And this is Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another Reddit Stories video, and today we will be covering unexplainable stories from Reddit. So this will just be a bunch of scary stories, and it'll be super interesting, and I've got a bunch of great stories lined up, so make sure you stick around, like and subscribe to the channel. The channel's goal is 500,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so please subscribe. And alright, anyways, this video will be long enough already, so let's get into some unexplainable stories from Reddit. I'm a nurse for the elderly. One of the patients made a terrifying confession. Despite what some might tell you, it's not actually so bad to work in this field. Sure, some of the elderly can be difficult times, and like any other job, this one has its stomach-churning moments, but most of them are sweethearts. All it takes is some compassion and patience to break through to them. So yeah, I mostly love this job. I wouldn't give it up if I could help it. The only part I don't like are the occasional confessions from some of the patients. They say that people can feel their ends nearing, and after a few years working this job, I've come to believe that. Some of them have no one else, no family or friends left, so they air their dirty laundry, so to say, in front of us nurses. Most of the time it's pretty mild stuff. Old Gregory cheated on his wife in their 30s, Larry used to be into hardcore BDSM, Lisa stole from her company for a while. Stuff you don't necessarily expect, but that doesn't surprise you in hindsight. Other times it borders on disturbing. Jenkins had a bar fight and ran away, and to this day he's not sure if the other guy survived. Sasha had an abortion on her own without telling her boyfriend at the time that she was even pregnant. Sierra abandoned her family, running away in the night to start a new life, and seeing the missing person posters ate her up inside. That's the kind of stuff that gets under my skin, but I can at least understand where they're coming from. I can sympathize, even if I don't condone their actions. But then there are the monsters, the ones that have completely, truly atrocious deeds, and their confessions keep me up at night. Julia, the sweetest old lady you'd ever meet, gaslit her husband into S-word to cash out his life insurance. Freddie helped burn an entire village back in the Vietnam War, basking in the flames and the screams of the dying. Sally abused her child growing up to the point it would cause a myriad of developmental problems. Mind you, I haven't been there myself for all of those confessions. Us nurses tend to share, morbid as it might sound. Go ahead and judge if you want, but we don't ask for those burdens to be placed on our shoulders, and we'll seek relief wherever we can find it. Most of the time, it's just innocent gossip. The, you won't believe what Gus used to do when he was his young type. Other times, there are tears and silent cries in the break room, stone-cold expressions, and a pressing atmosphere. Not a hint of levity to go around. But such is life in this field. Most of us have learned to live with it, and those who couldn't walked away. I myself am in the first camp, and I don't think last night will change my mind. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. You need some context in order to make heads or tails of this. It all started with Parker, so I should too. He's a bitter old man. No way to sugarcoat it. A tough nut to crack. Rage and hatred for everyone and everything simmering under the surface at all times. He's the type of person that won't be satisfied until your parade is soaked to the bone in rain. He's been here since before I was hired, so the other nurses warned me about him from day one. God, help you if you have to interact with him. He can ruin your entire week just by opening his mouth, they told me. I didn't take them seriously, thinking he couldn't be that bad. Spoiler alert, he was, but not in the ways you'd expect. He didn't get physically violent like some of the other elderly. He didn't fling shit and piss-soaked diapers at us. He flung words, but he knew how to make them cut, and cut deep. Our first interaction happened when I had to check up on him and make sure he took his medicine. It was a nice evening, and I found old man Parker in his room, lounging in his recliner. He faced towards the window, back to the door, and he didn't even bother around to look at me when I entered. "Good evening, Mr. Parker," I greeted. "Hey, fresh meat," he spat a response laced with spite. I gritted my teeth and tried to sound polite when I answered. "My name is Jessica, but—" "Fresh meat," he interrupted me. "You won't last a month, so I won't bother learning your name. Now why are you here, fresh meat?" I told him why, and he pointed at the empty pill bottle on the nightstand next to him. Then he returned to staring out the window at the sunset without another word, so I took my leave. This was how the first 3 weeks went by. I went over to his room for this or that. He made some snide remarks to insult me, and I held my tongue. It was clear he didn't want anyone around, especially me. But I was never a quitter, and I wasn't about to bend the knee to some old fart with a vendetta against happiness itself. "You still there?" he asked on the 4th week when I passed by his room to change his bedding. "My God, woman, you're about as smart as you're pretty." He was in his recliner again. Most of his evenings and nights were spent there, but by the day he'd be outside, or in the common area, terrorizing everyone he happened upon. But as soon as dusk approached, he'd retreat to his room and peer out the window until he fell asleep in the recliner. I ignored his remark, approaching the bed with a fresh set of sheets and pillowcases. "What? Did you swallow your tongue? Forget how words work?" He kept pestering me. I took off the old sheet and discarded it on the floor, even though it wasn't all that dirty. That wouldn't be a big surprise. Honestly, the only thing surprising me is that you learned to speak in the first place. Now, I don't recommend doing what I did, reacting like I had. At that point, I should have thrown in the towel and walked away, but I didn't. After 2 weeks of abuse like that on a daily, I snapped. I threw the fresh sheets haphazardly on the bed and stomped over to his recliner. "Listen here, you shriveled up ballsack," I went off on him. "I don't know what your problem is, but I don't need this kind of treatment in my life. I'm not surprised that your family left you. With an attitude like that, I would have dropped you off at a care home first chance I got as well." I hurled insult after insult at him, digging deep to dredge out the nasty side of me, fully expecting Parker to go off on me in return, but instead he stood there and took it all. With each colorful word leaving my mouth, the corners of his lips pulled a little further up into a satisfied grin. I only stopped when I ran out of breath, and he waited a moment to make sure I was done. "What did you say your name was again?" he asked. "Jessica." "Jessica," he repeated, letting each letter roll off his tongue. "Tell you what, I like you." And that was that. He returned to staring out the window, and I was able to carry out my work in peace. I regretted the outburst for a while, feared that it would somehow come back to bite me in the ass and get me fired, but Parker didn't tell anyone. It was our little secret. Every day after that, he'd grin when he saw me. He still gave me lip, but it was different, more jovial, not trying to insult me and drive me away, just to tease me. But I could work with him without breaking down into tears afterwards, so I took my win. After a while, I started teasing him back. He'd call me his insult of the day, I called him mine, we'd laugh it off and move on. What I'm trying to say is that we developed this weird bond, and I actually started having fun. I started looking forward to it. We didn't talk about anything else. I didn't know the first thing about him, and he didn't know the first thing about me, but in my eyes, that only added to the charm. Life moved on, and before I noticed, I'd been working there for years. Rumors about Parker abounded. Everyone had their theories and beliefs, but I couldn't confirm or deny any of them. The man was still as much of a mystery to me as he'd been on the first day. Then one day, about a month ago, things started to change. He'd make less comments. He spent more and more time in his room, isolating from everyone. Parker had always been very self-sufficient for someone his age, but he started needing help with things, and I could see it killed him on the inside. I didn't mind. This was what I was getting paid for. But the man had his pride. He refused to be seen by a medic and get treatment, so we all expected him to kick the bucket soon. A prospect that made most everyone in that care home happy, but I for one dreaded it. Even so, I knew better than to try and talk to him about it. One evening before I went home, I checked on him. Parker was in his usual spot in the recliner, drapes drawn aside and window wide open. The sun was already gone, sunken below the horizon, painting it red as night creeped in. He didn't acknowledge my presence, not until I stopped next to him. "Hey Jessica," he greeted, his voice a low rumble. I nearly went for a "hey fartbone," but the sound of my name and the way that he said it gave me pause. For the first time in the many years I'd known him, he sounded serious for once. A pit of dread formed in my stomach. "Everything all right, Mr. Parker?" His lips curled at the corners, pulling his gaunt face into a smile. A dry, raspy chuckle left his throat, but he let me question linger in the air for a moment. "Going home for the night?" he asked. "Yes." "Could you stay just for a little while longer?" "Of course." I knew what this meant. Parker felt his time was coming, and he wanted someone next to him. I leaned in to take his hand into mine, but a bastard will be a bastard to the very end. He slapped my hand away, so we stood there in awkward silence, watching the night settle outside. "You're the closest things I have to a friend, Jessica," he said out of the blue. "The closest thing I have to a family." He let out another chuckle, but it sounded sad. God, I'm so pathetic. I put a hand on his shoulder, and this time he didn't slap it away. I had no idea what exactly to say. Parker wasn't one for sappy speeches, so in the end I went with the truth. Blunt as it was, I figured he'd appreciate my honest opinion. "It's your fault for being a grumpy old fart. You could have had many friends here. So why?" "Do you have any plans tonight?" he asked, and I nodded a no. "Then, can I answer your question with a story?" "Sure." He shifted in the recliner, biding his time as he searched for the right words. I'd seen it all before in others. They think themselves ready to open up until the time comes to actually do it. With a sigh, he resigned himself to the situation and started speaking. Parker was born in a small town in the 1940s, right off the back of the Second World War. He had an older brother and a father, neither of which he remembers. The first died of some disease as a child, and the second got drafted and died overseas while Parker was still a baby. That left his mother alone to raise him. But they weren't the only ones struggling to make ends meet in the town. Most everyone else did too. Life back then was harsh, especially for isolated communities like theirs. But I had a decent enough childhood, Parker assured me. My mother did her best, working herself to the bone and going hungry most nights to make sure I wouldn't. He took a short pause, prying his gaze away from the window to make eye contact with me. I could tell he was uncomfortable. Dwelling on the past brought him a great deal of anguish, but he looked away from me after a long moment, back at the dark world outside, and continued speaking. Despite his mother's best efforts, his childhood was short-lived. Parker had to grow up fast, to become dependable, to help around the house and find work. It wasn't that uncommon back then. Kids as young as 8 or 9 worked shoulder to shoulder with the adults. We didn't have much of a choice. Things such as getting an education or waiting until they were adults, those were little more than pipe dreams, but luckily Parker was big for someone his age. At only 10, he was taller and stronger than his 15-year-old friends. He could handle his manual labor, and having an extra set of hands to go around, a second breadwinner, did wonders for their household. "I still remember getting my first ever pay," he said with a sad smile. "A small sum, but I was proud. Mother wanted me to spend it on myself to get something nice, but I didn't. I bought a sack of flour for her to make bread out of, and I used the fabric to make myself a new pair of shorts. I'm so sorry," I stuttered. "Yeah, me too." But time went on. Parker kept working throughout the years, living life one day at a time. Trouble was never far off, but he faced it head on. The adults always tried to shortchange him for his work, and other kids tried to bully him out of his meager earnings regularly. The first time that happened, I came home empty-handed with a broken nose and a busted lip, he said bitterly. 5 of them ganged up on me. It was a dog-eat-dog world back then. When he was about 13 and his mother brought home a new man, Parker hoped for a change. A chance for him to have a father, a role model, someone to teach him how to be a man himself. He thought life would get easier. How wrong I was, he said. That man was an alcoholic abuser. Parker and his mother found out as much soon enough. Her sooner than him, but he saw the signs. Even though he still worked and brought his earnings home, food was suddenly in short supply. His mother always had bruises she tried to hide, and his stepfather was always drunk. When I returned home beaten up again by the older kids, I was hopeful for once. I thought he'd go out there and do something about it. And he didn't? I asked with hesitation. Parker huffed. He beat me up as well for being a sissy. In his own words, "It better not happen again, you hear me?" He said that the next time I come home empty-handed, he'd show me real hell. Why didn't you run away or get the authorities involved? Run away? Where to? Parker answered. The authorities didn't give a shit. He kept enduring the abuse for the sake of his mother. Couldn't leave her all alone with the stepfather, and it escalated gradually. Soon enough, his stepfather would take Parker's money outright, then he'd beat his mother out in the open. It wasn't long until he raised his hand at me on the regular, Parker said, but it kept my mother safe, so I endured it. On the nights I'd get beaten up, she was safe. And those nights only got more common as time went on. At first, Parker would get beaten up for stepping in, taking the place of his mother, then he'd get beaten up for not bringing enough money home, and then for no reason at all. At some point, I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped, Parker admitted. The other kid stole my money again, and I was afraid to go home that night, afraid of what he'd do to me. So I ran off into the woods, looking for a place to sleep, and instead I found this old well. Old well? I asked, not sure what it had to do with anything up to that point. Old well, Parker confirmed. You know, a hole in the ground for people to get drinking water? Yeah, I know what a well is. At any rate, he found this old well, a dilapidated thing, long out of use and in serious disrepair. Parker nearly fell down into it when he leaned over the edge to peer down. He threw a pebble into it, and it never landed. Then he tried spitting into it and yelling down into the shaft. It echoed for a long time, much longer than it should have. Parker listened in awe as his own voice reverberated from the well for minutes on end, not getting any fainter, but awe inside. It gave him the idea. I didn't like the sound of that. I did end up returning home that night, Parker said. Found him beating up my mother since I wasn't there, and he chased me when he saw me. Parker led his stepfather out of the town and into the woods, farther away from civilization, deeper and deeper between the trees, until he heard the faint echo of the well still calling out. I hid nearby and kept quiet, he said, waited for him to find the well, and he did. He heard the echoes of my scream and thought I fell down into the damn thing trying to hide. The asshole laughed about it. His stepfather approached the well and leaned over the edge, still laughing. "Did you learn your lesson yet, you damn bastard?" Parker imitated him. Little did he know that I did. It just wasn't the lesson he wanted me to learn. Parker burst out from his hiding place while his stepfather was distracted and ran up at him. All it took was a single push, he said grimly. A single push. And he tumbled over the edge. Fell into the abyss head first, screaming all the way to the bottom. From that day onward, the echo of his voice joined mine in that well. The authorities pretended to search for him for a few days, but no one truly gave a shit. He was just an alcoholic bastard, so everyone thought he'd gotten his comeuppance. That he died in a ditch somewhere or he ran away in search of greener pastures and other people to terrorize. No one suspected us, Parker said. Not my mother, who was too weak to fight back, and they considered me just a kid. No way in their eyes for either one of us to kill an adult man. With him out of the picture, though, Parker's life improved somewhat. He still earned a pittance, and the other kids still bullied him, but at least he could rest easy in his own home. I went to that well every day at first, then every other day, then once a week at most, but the screams never stopped. Day and night. They got fainter, barely a whisper in the wind, but I could still hear them. Didn't it scare you? It terrified me, Parker admitted, but I also saw the possibilities. That answer terrified me. I contemplated for a moment to call it a night to put an end to Parker's confession and leave, but I was also curious, for better or for worse. Next up were the kids that bullied me, Parker continued. It took me a long time to build up the courage to even consider it, but enough abuse will push reasonable men to do unreasonable actions. The gang was 5 members strong, their leader 19 years old and the youngest about Parker's age. The rest were all in between. Starving street urchins, Parker called them, either orphans or with home lives similar to his own that pushed them to run away and brave the world. Except they were lazy, Parker said. They took the easy way out, stealing, conning, bullying other kids like they did to me. The community wasn't happy with them, but they never targeted adults, so they were tolerated until they beat up Parker for the 100th time and he decided he'd had enough. I only wanted to get rid of their leader, he said. Thought their little clique would break apart without him, but I couldn't separate them. Parker tried to challenge him to a one-on-one fight outside of town, but he came with the rest of his gang and he was pissed. You could see the bloodlust in his eyes from a mile away. I knew they'd give me hell like never before, so I had no choice. All 5 of them had to go. Parker ran away, and just like his stepfather, they chased him into the woods. He hid near the well again, and when they got closer to inspect the echoing voices, Parker repeated his earlier stunt. "I pushed the older boy first," he said, in a stone-cold voice. Then, before the others had a chance to wise up, I pushed the second oldest as well. The others were smaller. I could take them. They tried to run away, to escape with their lives, but I couldn't let them. Parker chased them down, and he caught up to the youngest first. He tripped the boy from behind and stomped on his knee to break it, then kept going. The second one he grabbed by the shoulders and swung into the tree head first, breaking his neck. I tackled the last one and got him into a chokehold. He kicked his legs, clawed at my arm, tried to bite me a few times. When he realized he couldn't break free, he started pleading, begging for his life. Told me he wouldn't speak a single word about what happened here. He begged like that all the way to the well, until his legs were over the edge. The boy with the broken neck followed, and the one with the broken leg dragged himself quite the distance by the time Parker got to him. But he went through with it, and that night, the well gained 5 more voices. Parker stopped his retelling for a moment and stared off into the distance. At first I thought he was either giving me a breather, a bit of time to process what I heard, or that he was searching for words. I looked outside as well, and the silhouette of a tree against the starry night sky shook in the distance. A reverberating scream followed. "We don't have much time left. I have to hurry up," Parker whispered. I was frozen by his side as he picked the story back up, in shock and fear, not knowing what was about to go down or what I should do. I'd witnessed a few confessions by that point, but none came even close to Parker's. He confessed to 6 murders in just as many minutes, and I was sure there'd be a few more by the time he'd be done with me. The guilt ate me up inside, he confessed. I went by the well every single day, fighting back the urge to jump into it myself. No one missed those kids, and no one in the community blamed Parker. He wasn't the only one getting bullied by then, and on some level, everyone was glad they were gone. One less problem in their lives. So they were happy to pretend the 5 ran off somewhere to carry out bigger heists. I was depressed for years because of it, but I kept telling myself that I had to do it, that my life was better now. Lies I only half believed. But they got me out of bed in the morning. Another tree shook outside, closer to us, but there wasn't a scream this time. Parker flinched visibly. Anyway, the years flew by. People kept leaving the small town, flocking to big cities in search of work. I was one of them. I found this wonderful girl, and I left with her. They took Parker's mother as well, and the 3 of them found work at some factory or another. And for a few years, he thought he'd left the small town and his horrible deeds behind. Until I started hearing screams in the night. Voices I recognized. I thought I was imagining it at first. I tried to convince myself it was nothing more than me just going insane with guilt. Another tree shook outside, followed by a howl. And let me guess. It was all too real. Parker nodded his head. My mother went missing one evening, and we never found her. The big city police took it a bit more seriously, but they couldn't dig up a single lead. No witnesses, no suspects, nothing. But Parker knew exactly where to find her, or what was left of her. After a long trip back to his hometown and a trek through the woods, his worst fears were confirmed. His mother's voice joined the torturous chorus in the well. I broke down right then and there, cried in that forest by myself all night long. It was supposed to be me, not her. He returned home though, if only for the sake of his girlfriend and soon-to-be wife. She was pregnant, They'd soon have their first child, and Parker wanted a better life for them than he'd had growing up. He'd be there for his kids, there for his wife, there to make sure they'd be alright. They got married with little fanfare, few friends, and even fewer family members for a proper wedding, and their child was born a couple of months later. The most beautiful baby girl in the world, Parker explained with a glint in his eyes. Holding her, hearing her crying, it was all I ever wanted, enough to justify everything I'd done and been through in a heartbeat. Another tree shook outside, and something took contour in the underbrush at the edge of the property. I let out a yelp, and Parker reached for me. He grabbed my forearm and held me steady as I tried to back away. "We still have a few minutes," he said calmly. "And don't worry, it's not here for you. You're safe." He proceeded with the rest of his story, and I had to try my damned hardest to divide my attention between him and whatever was out there. I treasured every moment and with my wife and daughter, but you know how these things go. She grew up in a heartbeat. Before I realized it, she spoke her first words, took her first steps, moments I couldn't be prouder of as a father. The thing bellowed, a guttural sound that rattled my bones. Dying animal was my first thought. A coyote getting murdered or a fox going into heat. It took a step forward into the faint circle of light surrounding the care home, and I saw a human face. Then another one. And another one, contorted in agony and held together to form a gigantic head. Then that thing returned once more, Parker said, raising a hand to point at the advancing beast. More cries in the night, more screams and howls. I knew what it wanted, but I couldn't let it have me or my family. Another step brought its neck and torso into view, pulsing muscles crisscrossing each other at random, skin stretched as though it pulled taut, dozens of human arms jutting out of it in the most random places. Its myriad of eyes moved every which way, scanning, searching. I knew I had to do something before it was too late, to either get rid of it or appease it, and I knew what it wanted. "What?" I asked, stuttering and shaking with fear. "People. Bodies. Victims," Parker answered. "More of them." I opened up its appetite, and now it was hungry. If I didn't give it what it wanted, it would get itself. Take my world from me. I didn't want it to do it. I tried to talk myself out of it until the very last moment, but I was so pressed for time and worried sick for my family, so I went back to the town. For a moment, I wished my eyes could do the same thing the creatures did. I wanted to turn and look at Parker to see his face, but I didn't dare take my eyes off of it. Every last muscle in my body was clenched, holding me in place. I was barely able to breathe. It took another step forward, and all of those dead, beady eyes focused, every last one of them pinned on the window, on the room, on me and Parker. I kidnapped someone," Parker said, his voice fraying into a cry at the edges. "An older man living all by himself. I knew him, knew he'd been a widower for decades. He knew me. He barely fought back as I tied and gagged him. I expected him to plead as well like the kids had. I expected him to fight me, but the silence, it was worse somehow." "Did he know about that thing?" I managed to push out a question. "What? No, of course not," Parker answered. "He was just old and frail. And he knew he couldn't do anything to stop me. Maybe he'd given up on life long ago, like I ended up doing. I don't know." The rest of the monster came into view as it advanced towards the open window, and there was so much more of it than I expected. So many legs moving haphazardly, slapping the lawn at awkward angles to pull the body along. It felt surreal, like the window was a screen and I was merely watching some cheap horror movie with even cheaper special effects. At night, I dragged the old man out of town and through the woods. I got him into the well, said a short prayer for his soul, and tipped him over the edge. He went down without a sound. The monster stopped a few feet away from the window and craned its head forward. By that point, I was pretty much useless, more of an ornament than an active participant. Parker let go of me and moved to get up, failing twice. His old bones were all out of strength. But he saw his determination. The third attempt saw him to his feet, even if a bit wobbly. "I returned to my wife and daughter after that," he said, taking a step towards the window, "and all was fine for a while. Seeing her smile growing up, having her by my side, it kept the guilt at bay. She was my world, and I was ready to do anything to keep my world from crumbling. The monster cooed. One of its many faces moved along its skin, pushing against the rest until it got to the forefront. A wide smile took over its lips, replacing the agonized expression. The next time the screams returned, I knew what I had to do. Knew what the rest of my life would be like, what sins I had to commit. Every few years I'd return to that cursed town, kidnap someone in the dead of night, and throw them into the well. The smile on the face of the forefront only grew wider, but the rest didn't match. They started whispering aggressively, their voices merging as they got louder. I kept at it until my daughter grew up, until she found a boy she wanted to marry and moved out, until everyone left that town behind to be an empty shell for the force to retake. And I called it a job well done. I thought my daughter was safe and I could finally let the monster take me, that I'd finally atoned for all of my sins. Parker closed the gap to the window, and so did the monster. It pushed its many arms into the room, hands both big and small, grasping at the air as they tried to reach him. And what happened to her, I asked. The question felt strange coming up out of my throat and leaving my mouth, like it was uttered by someone a million miles away, completely detached from the situation. Parker extended one of his arms, but paused and turned to face me. "What do you think happened, Jessica?" he asked in a somber voice. "What do you think pushed me on the run for the rest of my life? It made me grow wary of approaching people and making friends." I held back the answer, if only because I had one more question. "Why tell me all of this?" Parker smirked, the same mischievous, shit-eating grin I'd gotten used to from him. "'Cause I'm a selfish old bastard," he said matter-of-factly. "I wanted at least one person to know and maybe miss me, and now you do." He took the final step that brought him within the monster's reach, and I got a hold of his arm with 100 fingers. The many eyes looked past Parker directly at me. "Thank you, Jessica," Parker said, his back to me. "You can leave now. That'd be the best." I didn't argue with him on that. I slowly walked backwards towards the door. My head was heavy, mind spinning, and my legs felt like unsteady stilts 100 feet long. But I did it. I reached the door, backed out into the corridor, and closed it gently. Parker watched me the whole time, a peaceful smile on his lips until the latch clicked. The rest of the night was a blur. I wandered to the break room with tears streaming down my face, but I didn't even realize I was crying until I tried to light a cigarette and a tear fell on it. My hand shook like an earthquake, as did the rest of me. I smoked about half the pack, waiting and praying for the thing to leave so I could too. A couple of hours later, I finally built up the courage to bolt it out of the care home into my car. I drove home in a haze, eyes starting at every little movement, and I didn't manage to sleep a wink until the break of dawn. But I returned to the care home for my next shift, looking like a ghost. Police were there, interrogating everyone about Parker's disappearance, and I lied to them. Couldn't possibly tell them the truth. Not when I didn't know where the damn thing well is. So yeah, I lied until they left me alone. I lied until they packed in their car and drove off. Everyone else is awfully happy that Parker's gone, and I stand out among them like a sore thumb. Sitting in his recliner, writhing as the sunset approaches, I realized he was right on both accounts. He was a selfish old bastard, and he left behind someone who misses him. Stay in your vehicle. Back in April of 2013, I went through something that I haven't been able to talk about. I was paid a significant amount of money to stay quiet, in return for signing a 10-year agreement to shut the hell up. Now that the time is up, I've considered my opinions. I could just let this go and never speak of it again. I won't gain anything from speaking out, and I got a lot to lose. But then again, this is just an anonymous post online. Words have less meaning that way. West Virginia. It was hotter than usual. Without a whiff of wind, I was coming home from a visit to my aunt. She'd broken her leg and couldn't leave the house. I was making my way back home, taking the I-64 out of Lewisburg. It started with the radio. It was playing that one Macklemore song I'd heard 100 times over. The sound was cutting in and out in a quick staccato. Then it disappeared completely. I could hear cars honking up front as a line began to form. There was a sway in the trees, as it was greater and greater pressure was being put on them. I could hear wind rushing against the left side of the car, focusing me to pull the other way to compensate. I closed the sunroof as a dust cloud blew past, staining the windshield. Then a rumble. It sounded like thunder, but from the ground, like a groaning below, growing louder and clearer by the second. As it reached its peak, I could see trees toppling over. A small Kia got pushed off balance and swerved off the road. As the sound died down, the road dissolved into chaos. Some were desperately changing lanes, others were stepping on the brakes. I got my door scraped as the car behind me sped past. The radio was playing an automated message, a local emergency alert referred to as a geological event. We were asked to turn off all air conditioning, slow down, and divert to the nearest exit. It repeated in a monotone voice. Geological event. No air conditioning. Slow down. Divert to nearest exit. Minutes passed. There was a line forming further down the road. Police officers blocking the lanes in all directions, leaving a highway exit as the only option. Some folks were trying to push past the barricades but were forced back at gunpoint. I could see some officers wearing gas masks and riot shields. We were waved in. I followed the exit and got directed to the right. There was an open field that was used as a sort of impromptu parking lot. Cars were being waved in and parked in a way that boxed us in, leaving no room for us to open our doors in either direction unless we got parked at the edge. 4 lines of cars with about 10 to 15 vehicles per line. Surplus vehicles were directed further down the road. The place was packed. I got stuck in the second row, about 6 cars in. Pretty much everyone around me were on their phones. I didn't have anyone to call, but there seemed to be an issue getting a signal through. The radio was still repeating the emergency message. Voices were getting louder. A man 2 cars to my left leaned out of a gap in the door, screaming at the officers to answer his question. They responded immediately with a warning shot straight into the air. "Stay in your vehicle," they screamed. "Lock your doors. I'm not telling you again." A couple of folks were filming, but there seemed to be trouble uploading. We were losing bandwidth. It didn't take long until phone signals were completely blocked. I think a video or 2 of that officer firing into the air made it online. They were patrolling back and forth. We were told to stay in our vehicle, with windows up, doors closed and locked, engines off. I could hear people talking in their cars. Someone said there'd been a natural gas leak from a geological event and that combustion engines could spark an explosion. Others were talking about a terrorist attack, but there was no answers and the officers weren't eager to talk. After about an hour, things were getting ugly. People were hungry, thirsty, and restless. One officer stepped up on the front of the cars, handing out water bottles, crackers, and processed cheese slices. He had to step from one car to another, denting the hoods with his steel-tipped shoes. They were also handing out thick black plastic hygiene bags for people who needed to relieve themselves. Use them, seal them, drop them out the door, then lock up and wait. I'd crawled into the back seat, pulled down my cap, and tried to relax. I'd been playing some games on my phone, but the battery was running low. I wanted to save some, so I settled for having a nap instead. The sweat was stinging my eyes, not because of how warm it was, but because of how nervous I was. No matter what I did, I felt trapped, and the car felt smaller and smaller. I couldn't get out if I wanted to, and it physically hurt me to think about how little control I had. Is that what claustrophobia feels like? A couple of officers were discussing something by the front line. One of them had a white cotton glove on, which he used to wipe off the hood of one of the front cars. The glove was taken off and put into a bag, which in turn was sealed with a hot air gun. I was getting the impression that our cars had been covered in something. I wasn't the only one considering it. There were 2 college kids in the car to my left, and they were discussing it too. "Anthrax," one of them said. "Gotta be." "Nah, gold dust," the other chuckled. "They don't want to share." "You know what?" the first groaned. "I honest to God hope you're right." "You're not, but I hope you are." "Fuck you." I joined in the conversation shortly after. I offered another explanation, something combustible, something that might blow up if we started our cars. They were willing to consider this. The car behind me couldn't hear us, but the driver held up a notebook with the text, "If we don't know what, it's gotta be aliens." I couldn't tell if they were being serious, but they weren't laughing about it. A man in his 50s and what looked like his daughter. There were a couple of other folks in their cars. A man in a black shirt, sort of looked like a preacher without a collar. 2 middle-aged women with a kid in the back seat, a fat man blaring Johnny Cash from a stereo, a couple with a teenage son who couldn't stop drumming on the windows. We'd been stuck for about 2, maybe 2.5 hours when a truck rolled in, one of those with a large water tank. It was unmarked, looked civilian. As it rolled in, they were calling out on the megaphone. "We'll be hosing your vehicles down," they said. "Keep everything locked and closed. Then we'll be covering your vehicle with protective plastic while we wait for it to dry. After that, we'll start letting you go in an orderly manner. I repeat." Most of us were relieved. It was only a matter of time now. It was getting dark. They were getting up on their cars, hosing them down thoroughly. It smelled of chlorine, so maybe they'd mixed something into the water. As they came to my car, they stepped up on it and double-checked the sunroof, making sure it was locked and secured. They sprayed the car down, bathing it in a chemical stink, the kind that gets stuck in the back of your throat. It took a long time for them to finish, at least an hour or two. After that, they were rolling out a kind of plastic cover at the short side of the lot, the kind you use to protect pools or rain covers for football fields. They used 2 squad cars to slowly drape the thing over the entire lot, securing the edges with large rocks. "Please stay calm," they called out as the plastic crawled over us. "I know this is uncomfortable, but this is for your own safety. Once the cleaning is done, you will be free to go. Stay inside your vehicle at all times. I repeat." I did as I was told. I stayed inside, and I watched that plastic cover sweep over me. It felt like getting buried alive. All lights went out, leaving me in complete darkness, accompanied only by the vague, disembodied voices of the others. The college kids were talking about where they were going to go after this. Someone was honking, not sure if it was to show support or discontent. Someone else was cheering. I took my last swig of water, washing down my final plain cracker. I got back in the driver's seat. I could hear as they finished moving the plastic cover and parking their squad vehicles. I waited patiently, figuring it'd be maybe another hour or so. They hadn't really given us a timeline, but I could breathe a little easier. Sort of. I was going back and forth between feeling empowered with my hands on the wheel and feeling like I was stuck in a metal coffin. It was so dark and everything smelt of plastic and chemicals, like a car wash stuck in time. As the excitement died down, I paid more attention to the background sounds. I tried to filter out the various discussions from the nearby cars, and somewhere in the distance, I heard raised voices. It wasn't coming from the cars, but the officers. Whatever they were talking about, it was a heated discussion. An hour came and went, and people were getting impatient. More cars were honking, others were yelling, demanding answers. I couldn't get my leg to stop shaking. The more I thought about getting out of here, the smaller the car felt. I was hyper-focusing on things I couldn't control. I was a little thirsty, and I was out of water. I needed to use the bathroom. I wanted to stretch my legs and go for a walk. I wanted to breathe fresh air and get that awful chemical taste out of my mouth. I heard cars starting, accelerating. The truck was moving, somewhere off to the side. "We need you to stay in your vehicle," a voice screamed over the megaphone. "Do not leave for any reason. Stay in your vehicle." Cars speeding off, not many but a couple, then quiet. The officers left us there. Everyone was quiet. A couple of folks had opened up their phones, using them as a flashlight to look from car to car, looking out at the sea of vehicles, all of us trapped under that dark cover. I could see a handful of lights cut off by the sharp silhouettes. I couldn't make out who was in the dark. It was just all people, anonymous. I heard a gasp somewhere in the back. There was a metallic clunk, like when the officers climbed to top our cars to get us our waters. There was a careful cheer as some folks figured they were taking off the plastic cover, but that wasn't it. Instead, there were more footsteps. The cheer slowly died down as more and more footsteps pattered across our cars. I stopped counting after a dozen. The silhouettes in the other cars were still. We all held our breaths, waiting for an answer to show itself. What the hell was going on? What was that sound? Somewhere off to my right, I heard a voice. "Who's up there?" It sounded like an older man. I had seen a pickup truck that way earlier. Almost as a response, the footsteps stopped. There was a faint clicking sound, like someone snapping their tongue against the roof of their mouth. Click, click, and from further away, a click in response. From somewhere to my left, another couple clicks. Then a cascade of clicks, dozens, maybe hundreds. There was an awful metallic noise coming from my right, then breaking glass, a scream cut short, followed by several irregular taps of the car horn. One of the silhouettes in the distance turned into a blur as something passed through the windshield, cutting through the plastic cover. Somewhere in the front row, the roof of a car was cut wide open. Someone was pulled up out of their seat. 2 cars back from where I was, there was more glass breaking. It sounded like a wild animal got in. I could see a weak hint of a red splattered against the passenger side windows. I wasn't getting any air. I could feel my heart beating through my chest as my arms started shaking. My hands were cramped around the steering wheel, and I felt sweat dripping down from my shoulders. I couldn't control it. I didn't even see what was going on, but these sounds, these screams, they awakened something primal. This was danger, a threat. My body knew long before I did. The college kids in the other car were ducking down. One of them waved a hand at me as if telling me to get down. I nodded. I scrambled into the back seat. I couldn't see where I was putting my hands or my feet. Everything is different in the dark. As I tumbled my way over, my foot accidentally tapped the car horn. It was a quick tap, a fraction of a second, but to me, it was the loudest sound in the world. I was lying on my stomach in the back seat, and within seconds, something heavy climbed onto the hood of the car. I could feel my car buckling. It was much heavier than the man who'd passed out water bottles. I held my hands in front of my mouth to stop the panting, but I just ended up snorting up sweat instead. My nose stung as I bit my tongue, listening to every metallic groan as whatever was outside moved and shifted. Click, click, and from behind my car a click in response. There were no lights being held up anymore. Everyone was cowering, going quiet. I pushed myself up against the door behind the driver's seat, trying to make myself as small as possible. I could hear the frame of the car complain as something slowly moved. When it came to my sunroof, there was a slight crack. They made it stop. Another crack. I silently shook my head as if trying to ask the car to stop. That thing was going to break, and it did. My legs were showered with glass as a big blob of plastic cover dipped into my car. Something big came tumbling into the front seat. Still covered in protective plastic, it twitched and spun around, its clicking turning from a careful question-like noise to a never-ending barrage. It was calling for help, alerting others, and it was cutting its way through the plastic. There were footsteps coming from every direction, some of them leaping from car to car, some of them leaping far enough to skip a car as they hurried. I was going to be swarmed within seconds. I fumbled with my hands, accidentally cutting my thumb on the broken glass. I managed to open the passenger side door, but even at its widest, and even when pressing into the college kid's car, it wasn't enough room to get out. Still, I had to try. I pressed myself into the gap and exhaled as much as I could, flattening my chest. While the thing thrashed around inside my car, I could feel my vision going faint. Black spots popped up at the edge of my vision. My arms were going weak, and yet, by some miracle, I made it through. As my face hit the gravel of this makeshift parking lot, I felt the burn of residual chemicals. I swallowed my instinct to run, instead staying on my stomach, forcing myself to crawl under my car. There were more of them, some climbing on, some off. My chest was pressed to the ground as my weight shifted. I heard breaking glass from the windshield and tearing fabric. Something was up there, and it was furious, like a trapped animal. I could hear the college kids mumbling to one another, trying to stay calm, one assuring the other that all they had to do was stay low, stay quiet, and wait. Then something slammed into the passenger side door, the one I'd crawled out of. The door was pressed up against the neighboring car, then fell haphazardly to the ground, completely off the hinges. An ink-black, bird-like foot touched the ground right next to me. I've looked it up since. There were 3 toes forward, 1 toe backward, all clawed. Anisodactyl feet similar to that of many birds of prey, except larger than a human foot and with smooth, oil-slick skin. It must have been heavy, at least 400 pounds. If the clicking noise came from its mouth, I can approximate that it was somewhere around 6'7" to 6'9", or taller. It could have been hunched over. How it managed to walk in the gap between the vehicles is beyond me, but I suspect it was very thin. It daintily walked from my car to the others, as if scanning for something. I could barely see anything in the dark, but this thing seemed to navigate it perfectly. It didn't bump into anything. There was a tap on the glass of the car behind me, to my right, and someone got startled. A short scream, and the hunt was on. This time was different. It must have caused some kind of chain reaction, as all of a sudden the plastic cover was getting torn up left and right. People were clawing their way out of their cars. I heard someone kicking against their windshield. Another was trying to open their door. I could hear it slamming against the side of the car next to them. And off in the distance there was gunfire. Just a couple of shots. The college kids in the car next to me slammed their doors open and followed my lead. They rolled onto the ground and under their car. There was little more light coming in as the cover had been torn above. Their faces were red from tears, and one of them was desperately trying to call for help on his phone. The other grabbed the phone out of his hand. A short scuffle ensued, ending with them putting on a ringtone and sliding the thing as far to the left as they could. Whatever car that phone landed under was demolished. Every window broken, every passenger gone. I could hear the grinding as a seat was ripped in two and thrown away. In a matter of seconds, an entire vehicle was torn in pieces as a dozen of these things swarmed it. "Shut up," one of the college kids repeated. "Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up." Something reached under my car. It scraped against the sole of my shoe, tearing a hole all the way to my big toe. I hurried forward, scurrying like a lizard. The college kids noticed and followed suit. I don't think they'd thought about it too much. It was just movement, and they went for it. I made it 2 cars down before I got stuck. There was something dark in the way, and I couldn't get around it without exposing myself. I couldn't see what it was, but it didn't take long for me to figure it out. There was a meaty crunch as if someone was biting chunks out of a piece of meat. It was struggling to get through the fabric of their clothes, making a snapping noise as threads gave way. A pool of blood rolled under the car, staining the tip of my fingers. It was still warm. One of those things were eating a victim. I hungered down, trying to remember to breathe, and I stayed there waiting for a chance. Any chance. I must have stayed there for at least an hour, hearing every bite, every crack of bone and snap of sinew, satisfied clicking noises. As it finished its meal, it wandered off, dragging the remains along. They're moving forward. Something heavy walked over to the car I was hiding under, dragging a body along. Slowly, the footsteps disappeared. It was quiet again, and in that quiet, I found my footing. I made my way to the edge of the plastic cover. I listened one final time, pushed one of the weights away, and slipped through. They were gone, and I was out. I could feel my chest growing lighter, allowing me to breathe. I wanted to cry from relief. A breeze was picking up, drying the sweat on my brow and carrying the smell of grass. Stepping back, I turned towards the sea of cars to see how bad the damage was, and then I saw one. It was a bit off to the side, perching on top of an old Honda. At a glance, it looked like a tall person, covered in a slick black ink. But looking closer, you could see the strange bird-like feet, the pointed nails, the long row of shark-like teeth on its mouth that was far too wide. I froze. The thing rose to its full length, easily over 7 feet tall. It looked ready to pounce on me. I had nothing to defend myself with. I couldn't make any sudden movements. I wouldn't even be halfway under the car before the thing would be over me. 100 thoughts raced through my mind, but there was nothing I could do. I was out of options, but the thing just looked at me. It raised a slice of raw meat. Blood dripped onto the plastic cover. It looked at me curiously, taking a bite. Then, as if nothing had happened, it wandered off, satiated. I was left there, shaking like a dry leaf, and with the last of those things gone, all that was left was the panic. It didn't take long for the officers to return. The plastic cover was removed, but we couldn't go home. Not after this. Some folks signed a waiver and were let go immediately. They weren't allowed to talk about what they'd seen, and in return, they could get a hefty sum of insurance money. Others demanded answers and were taken into custody for obstruction of justice. A few others still were too panicked to make any kind of sense and had to be checked out for medical personnel. A total of 14 people died. It was described by a combination of causes: a traffic pileup, carbon monoxide poisoning, animal attack. I think there was something about an escaped convict too. Excuses all over the place, and the times are all wrong, spread out through a couple of days to more smoothly blend into accident statistics. And if you wanted to go home and get your insurance money, you had to sign a non-disclosure. I did too. I know the college kids did as well. Goddamn miracle they made it out, but I saw them. 34 cars had to be towed, 18 people wounded, 6 seriously so. 4 people lost at least one limb. One guy had an arm ripped off halfway up his collarbone. I don't know how he survived. Most people never saw those things up close. They just remember the screams and the breaking glass. Sometimes at night, that's all I hear too. Closing my eyes reminds me of lying under those cars, feeling the pressure as the weight shifted. I still get trouble breathing. I think a part of me is still stuck there. It stayed in my vehicle. They gave me pills to stop the hallucinations, but only 2 of my 3 friends went away. Pop culture is the graveyard of words. Original meanings are lost when language is repurposed creatively, yet destructively. Of course, there's only really a problem when significant words are rendered meaningless. When, for instance, illnesses become adjectives. When a person is just a little OCD, depressed, bipolar, psychotic. And that final word is one I used recklessly in my adolescence. But its true meaning became awfully apparent when my very perception of reality unwound, when I became unbound. The onset of my psychosis was unbearable. I was scared, confused, alone. Developing imaginary friends is endearing at the age of 8, but worrisome at the age of 18. I knew that. It's why I didn't let my loved ones know about my sickness. Of course, they noticed my change in demeanor, my general mental deterioration. However, given the recent death of my father, this erratic behavior was tied to grief. The root cause was overlooked. I hid as many symptoms as possible, made sure that my real friends didn't know about my imaginary ones, didn't know about my all-knowing companions who, peculiarly, appeared wherever I went. I was lucid enough to realize that they weren't real, lucid enough to realize that none of it was healthy. First came Grant, then Shirley, then Albert. These 3 friends weren't always present, but one or more of them would typically be a stone's throw away. It took very little time for me to realize that these imaginary friends were amalgamations of real people from my life. Grant reminded me of my late father. He was gentle but firm, grounded, trustworthy. Shirley reminded me of my late grandmother, a little lost in the clouds, but warm and wise, boundlessly wise. Her keen intellect compensated for her lack of common sense. Albert, however, was the anomaly. The Wally I never missed, despite my best efforts. To say that he unsettled me would not be doing the feeling justice, but I tried desperately to dispel the ache in my stomach. I told myself that Albert, like the others, must simply be a collage of faces and words that have shaped my life. I would have told myself anything to dislodge the lump in my throat, the one that bobbed to the surface whenever Albert entered the room. It always threatened to take the wind from my lungs, and I believed I would wake in the dark place Albert inhabited when he wasn't watching me. It was a false belief, of course. Albert was always watching. Earlier this year, there came the inevitable nervous breakdown. After 6 years of suppressing a steady stream of emotions, the dam burst. I lost my job. That was the trigger to coming clean about the delusions. I'd been hiding the truth since I was 18, but I knew I would struggle to do so forever. I told my mother, my girlfriend, my friends. I revealed that I'd been seeing people who weren't there, that I buried the truth beneath a shallow mound of antidepressants and strained smiles. But the thin coating had weathered away, as I had always known it would. There was something freeing about revealing this secret, and I reverted to my adolescent self, finally allowing myself to process everything that has haunted me since those late teenage years. As a result, I became a lot closer to my mother. It was a relief for her to finally understand why I distanced myself for so many years. There had been more to it than grief, and it certainly had nothing to do with her. "I know you'd rather have April with you right now," Mom said. I smiled, patting her hand softly. I brought my mother to the doctor for emotional support, but she came for her sake too. Mom was frightened on my behalf, as I'd recently opened up about my S-word ideation. She didn't want me to lose in the same way we lost Dad. Still, I'd reached out for help this time. That was what I reminded her and myself as we sat in the waiting room. "April tried her best to come," I said, "but I'm happy that you're here, Mom." "It's outrageous that her boss wouldn't give her the afternoon off work. This is important," Mom huffed. "It's only an appointment with the GP, I replied. "Don't get worked up. You'll send your blood pressure through the roof." My mother nodded absent-mindedly. "Will he prescribe antipsychotics?" "That was what he implied over the phone," I said. "This really isn't a big deal, Mom. I feel silly for asking you to come. In fact, he said I'd have to do an actual consultation alone, so..." "There's nothing silly about it, Justin," Mom interjected with a gasp. "You and I should talk about everything, big or small, day or night." "I know, Mom," I said. "I will. I'm getting better at talking. Take a breath." "Sorry," she exhaled. "I don't mean to be overbearing, Mother." "You're not overbearing," I replied. "I'm very lucky to have you." "I'm the one who should be sorry." Sorry that you have to suffer too." "Don't talk that way, Justin," Mom whispered tearfully. "We're here for you. You know that, don't you?" I frowned. It feels easier sometimes to bottle up my problems, to not be a burden. It makes my mind a little quieter when I only have to worry about myself. My mother shook her head. "That's your illness speaking. No matter the lies it tells, never face it alone. Your father was the same. It wants you to be weak and alone. That's why it keeps you away from those who love you. But Justin Woods," a voice called from an open door beyond the waiting area. "That's me," I loudly responded, before standing and turning to face my mother. "I'll be waiting right here," she promised. "So will I," Grant softly whispered. I avoided turning my head to face the gray-haired, middle-aged gentleman sitting in the plastic chair beside my mother, the gentleman who did not exist. I didn't want to upset my mother, so I beamed at her, hoping that Grant would not know if it was a smile intended for both of them. "Of course he knows," I thought. "He's in your head." "Come on," a fragile voice beckoned, scratching my earlobe. "It's time." Again, I didn't have to turn my head to know it was Shirley, though I had fixed my focus on Dr. Rolland, who stood at the edge of the waiting area. I sensed the old woman shuffling alongside me. Shirley always struggled to match my pace, yet never slipped too far behind. She was bound to me, and only me, my inner sage. A melancholic wave suddenly rushed up my body, leaving my throat with an acidic sting. I longed to properly say goodbye to my two dear friends before the medication erased them from my brain. However, I didn't want to catch the attention of Dr. Rolland. It wouldn't have bothered him, of course, but I was self-conscious about my illness. Even in a place built to treat ailments, matters of the mind are not the same as matters of the body. There's a taboo with mental illness, a stigma that, no matter how much we pretend otherwise, is prevalent throughout the world. That is why I hid my symptoms for so many years. That is why Albert emerged. "It's okay, Justin," Shirley assured me, placing a frail palm on my shoulder whilst waving her free hand at my brow. "We are up there, but I won't be able to hear you anymore," I thought, while smiling convincingly at Dr. Rolland. "We guide you even when you don't hear us," Shirley said soothingly. "You are me. You are all of those who have come before you, those who have shaped you." "Don't worry about us, champ," Grant said, having abruptly appeared on the other side of me. "You're allowed to let go. You're allowed to heal. I'm proud of you, pal." And he would be too. I nodded ever so slightly, but stopped when Dr. Rolland started to frown, having clearly noted the turmoil emblazoned across my vacant eyes. "Are you okay, Mr. Woods?" he asked. I cleared my throat. "Yes, just a little nervous." The doctor smiled, motioning for me to follow him into his office. "Quite understandable, but I promise that I'm going to help you through this. I'm not here to write a prescription. Over the coming weeks and months, as you adjust to the medication, I will monitor your progress." I nodded, sitting beside Dr. Rolland's desk as he closed the door. "Do you have any questions?" he asked as he slumped into the seat opposite me. I paused. "Is it really as simple as getting a referral, then heading to the pharmacist? Will pills make the noise go away?" Dr. Rolland smiled again. "We're going to try olanzapine, Justin. Now, the effects of this medication vary slightly from person to person. Some notice a marked decline in symptoms of psychosis within a matter of days. For others, it may take a few weeks. But as I said during our phone consultation, I will be with you for every step of the way, Justin. I always have been, haven't I?" I raised an eyebrow, and the doctor laughed. "Really? You don't remember me? I'm glad I had made such a big impression, Justin. Your parents have been bringing you here since you were a child." "I know," I said. It's not that. I remember you, Dr. Rolland. It's just, those were appointments for sickness bugs and minor injuries. I never thought I'd see a doctor about anything like this. For the past few years, I've been living in denial, pretending that I haven't gone crazy." "That's not a kind of way to talk to yourself, Justin," the doctor cautioned as he printed off a prescription slip. "You're unwell, not crazy. You'd take antibiotics for a nasty infection just as you'd take antipsychotics for this slight hiccup in your mind." "I suppose so," I uncertainly replied as I accepted the small strip of paper. "Do I need to come back here for repeat prescriptions?" Dr. Rolland shook his head. "I'd suggest using the patient access website to order online. You just order, go to the pharmacy, and get a top-up. No need to see my annoying mug every time. That's it, I asked. The man nodded kindly. That's it, but I'll contact you to arrange a checkup appointment in a few months, just to see how you've been reacting to the medication. And if you experience any side effects in the meantime, please contact me. Side effects? I gulped. It's a possibility with any medication, he said, but don't worry, Justin. We're just trying something out, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. Does that sound like a good plan? I mumbled some words of agreement as I shakily rose to my feet, then I hurriedly slipped the paper into my coat pocket, jamming my hand deeply inside. I was afraid to lose my winning ticket. So, I won't see people anymore? People who aren't there, I asked. The olanzapine should eradicate or reduce symptoms, the doctor replied, leading me to the door. Of course, if it doesn't improve anything, you'll have to let me know. Let's just take it one day at a time. Everything's going to be okay, Justin. So everyone keeps telling me, I thought, as I shuffled out of the door that the doctor impatiently held open. As I passed through the hallway between Dr. Rollins' office and the waiting area, I felt that awfully familiar clump in my esophagus, an unwelcome visitor constricting my airway, and I knew what I would see before I even twisted my head to the right. At the far end of the corridor, past the rows of offices, there stood a man with arms stiffly clamped to his sides, a man whose features were always indistinct even when he stood so near. Albert. He wore forgettable attire. For all I knew, it may have always been the same, may have been different every time. I struggle, even after seeing him so many times, to describe his facial features, for he was murky and abstract, but I always knew his face when I saw it. To capture even a glimpse of his uneven eyes and lips was a paralyzing nightmare. No other fear has been compared. The tall man was chained by unseen shackles to the clinic's tiled floor, and his entire body was practically convulsing. An inflating and deflating chest communicated his innermost fury. Albert was not like the others. He did not support my desire to heal. He had made that clear after my initial phone call with Dr. Rolland. Since that day, the man had remained uncharacteristically silent, in spite of the unnerving things Albert had a tendency to say. I feared him most when he had nothing to say at all, when he soundlessly eyed me from distant crevices, rage frothing at the surface. He lurked in the clinic's corridor, teetering on the precipice of lunging forward at any moment. His eyes revealed a desire to do something unspeakable. I didn't want to tempt him by watching and waiting, so I hurried along. Justin? Mom called? How did it go? I strolled into the waiting area with a fox smile. Mom, Grant, and Shirley were sitting in red plastic chairs, verging on tears as I approached. Come on, I said, helping my mother to her feet. Time to buy some drugs. Justin, Mom tutted, grimacing. Those first 2 weeks were hellish, yet emboldening. Being freed from my shackles did not invite some instantaneous moment of euphoria. As Dr. Roland had warned, the process took time. He had not explained how messy it would be, however, how excruciating it would be, at times to hear the jumbled words of Grant and Shirley as they slowly drowned, scrambling to be heard above the rising tide. Thoughts don't die, Justin, Shirley choked. We're part of you. By the following Friday, I hadn't seen any of my friends for a couple of days, and that was my longest bout without hallucinations for years. To celebrate, I organized a dinner with Mom and April at our favorite Chinese restaurant, just the three of us. For the first time in a long time, there would be no non-existent guests. That was what I planned. You seem better today, my mother said, moments before tucking into a sticky rib. You had a good day yesterday, didn't you? April asked, turning and smiling at me. Sorry, I don't mean to speak on your behalf. Are you okay today, Justin? My publicist speaks the truth, I nodded theatrically. I'm happy and healthy. No further questions, please. Thank you. She rolled her eyes. There's one frustrating side effect, however. Bad jokes. Oh no, he's always told those, my mom said. Isn't this supposed to be a celebratory meal, not a roast? I asked, chuckling. It's both, my mother smiled. That's the Woods way. Your father would have had something funny to say right now, wouldn't he? I nodded, reaching across the table and clutching her hand. Funnier than anything I've said. My mother wiped a tear from her eye. No, you were both hilariously unfunny. Dad would be. He is so proud of you. Justin. I know that's a cliche, but cliches exist for a reason. I'm just so happy that you've improved so quickly. Seeing you and April smiling at each other just warms my heart. He is pretty lucky to have me, April agreed, grinning. I know you're being facetious, but you're right, my mother said. You're the daughter she always wanted, I teased. After 20 years of disappointment and with a measly son, you came a long way to save the day. Thanks, April. Justin, my mother groaned. I tittered as I climbed out of my chair, just nipping to the bathroom. I'll give you two some time to vent your frustrations about me. Why? It's not as fun without you here to endure it, April said. Hardy har, I replied, startling her with a pinch of the shoulder as I walked away from the table. Whilst beelining towards the bathroom door, with a spring in my step and restaurant chatter in my ears, I barely noticed him. The nodding man sat alone at a booth in the corner of the restaurant, and it was his laughter that drew my attention. It rose above the roar of the dining area. He was amused by some unheard joke, so amused that tears trickled down his face, and my eyes met him as he motioned a hand towards the chair opposite, the man I'd hoped to never see again. Chest juddering, I ignored Albert and scurried into the bathroom with a smile well and truly rubbed from my face. I pretended I hadn't seen him, pretended that I still hadn't hallucinated in days. Bracing against either side of the bathroom sink, it took a minute for me to control my breathing. I reminded myself that the medication was not a cure. I was never going to be entirely eradicated my illness, but simply treat it, mitigate the worst symptoms. But why? Out of the three, did Albert have to return? I wondered, sweat staining my flesh. Anybody else, please. As if responding, there came labored breathing from the lock stall behind me. My eyes unsteadily glanced at the mirror ahead, and I saw movement through the crack between the cubicle door and the wall. Saw a bloodshot eye peeking at me through the slim gap. Don't scream, Albert whispered, placing a finger on his lips as my mouth opened. You won't like what happens if you scream. Then the man wagged his finger through the cubicle's narrow gap, urging me to come forward. I wanted to flee the bathroom, but there was no running from him. I knew that. Only obeying his commands would offer me the slightest respite. So I nodded and walked over to the locked bathroom stall with a gaping, quivering mouth. I've missed you, Albert whispered, panting heavily. I eyed his smile's unevenly sized teeth through the slight opening, felt the decaying breath escape his jaws and wash across my cheeks. My very body shrank in terror as his wormy finger stretched forwards, threatening to tear into my cold cheek. I've been better lately, I croaked. Better? Albert asked, grin broadening. You were better before. They'll only burden you. Do you want me to make them go away? I'm going back to the table now, I whispered hoarsely. I don't want to talk to you anymore, Albert. You're not real. Is that what Dr. Rollin told you? Albert giggled, revealing a haunting fragment of his face. I'm very real, Justin. Very, 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 very real. I'm leaving, I stammered, taking ginger steps away from the unstable man. You're no fun, Justin, Albert sulked, his eyes mashing against the gap in an effort to follow my movement. It's just you and me, Justin. It'll always just be you and me. I'll help you. I'll free you. Jaw locked in a haunted gasp, I scurried out of the bathroom door. Albert was no longer sitting at the darkened table in the restaurant's corner, and I prayed he would stay in the bathroom cubicle. Forever, preferably. Are you okay, dear? My mother asked, frowning as I returned to the table with a white complexion. Yes, I muttered, feigning a smile. It's just been an overwhelming couple of weeks. April smiled, taking my hand. You're doing so well, Justin. I'm proud of you. I nodded weakly, but I was not present for the remainder of the meal. My eyes continually returned to the men's bathroom, squinting to search for Albert in the grimy corners of the room. His awful face was nowhere to be seen, and that did not comfort me. The following night, I escaped from that primal, paralyzing state of fear. Told myself that I'd let a slight wobble affect me a little too much. To distract myself, I invited some friends to my home, April, Michael, and Jane. I revealed my interaction with Albert, and my friends were fantastic, incredibly supportive. I felt foolish and reminded myself that I was stronger when I opened up to my loved ones. In spite of Albert's claims, people were not a burden, and isolation was not freedom. I'm starving, Michael said. Shall I head to Domino's? Yes, Jane excitedly squealed. I'll come with you. Get us 2 margarita pizzas, please, April said. Thanks, mate, I added as the pair walked out of the door. There was a moment of silence in the lounge, followed by April twisting her head to offer a sultry, mischievous grin. And then there were 2, she whispered, bouncing her brows. Were you hoping for a quick game of Monopoly? I teased, motioning at the stacks of board games in the cabinet. My girlfriend rolled her eyes and seized my hand. Yes, let's play Monopoly upstairs. We were by no means quick. I'll leave it at that. Shit, April gasped afterwards, eyeing the bedside clock. It's 8 o'clock. I frowned as I got dressed. Already? What time was it when they left? 7, and there were no messages from them, she said, eyeing the WhatsApp chat. It shouldn't have taken them an hour. Domino's is only around the corner. Are they okay? They must be playing Monopoly, I grinned. April snorted, shaking her head as she slipped into her clothes, but the warmth fled my lips as my eyes wandered to the bedroom window, as I eyed a darkened figure at the back of my garden. Dimly revealed by solar lights, Albert was watching from the shade of an oak tree. I tried to conceal my horror, but I'd caught April's eye, and she followed my gaze to the garden. I expected her to console me, expected her to say that I should talk to my doctor about the medication not working as well as I hoped. I certainly did not expect. Who's that? My body chilled as I processed April's question. 2 unthinkable words. I told myself that it had been an auditory hallucination, but I knew better, knew when she frowned at me. Justin? Do you know that man outside? She asked. That's your property, isn't it? I trembled. You can see him? April's face grew more fearful. Yeah, I see him, Justin. Should we call the police or try telling him to leave? Do not go out there, I warned sternly, grabbing April by the shoulders. We're staying in this room, okay? April shivered wildly. Do you know him? You're scaring me, Justin. Let's just call the police. He'll just be some unwell man. He's not dangerous. Please tell me he's not dangerous. I realized we'd both looked away from the window, and when I turned back to the garden, I was unsurprised to find that Albert had vanished. I don't understand, I whimpered. He's gone. April turned her head to the window, then back to me. He was real. Justin, I saw him. Let's call the police. Whoever he is, they'll... You don't understand, I coldly interrupted. What don't I understand? April asked, shaking. You're not putting me at ease about him, Justin. Please just let me call the... There came the click of my front door opening, silencing and freezing the 2 of us in an instant. Michael? April yelled. Don't, I begged, putting a finger to her lips. It's not them. It's... What, Justin? What? She cried. You won't believe me, I said, tiptoeing towards the bedroom door, then inching it open. Through the opening, I had a direct view of the stairs. The front door was swaying inwards and outwards, driven by a growing gust. There's nobody at the door, I whispered fearfully. Right, I'm doing it, April said, slipping her phone out. Before her finger hit a single number, then came a creak from behind us. Our eyes were drawn to the in-suite of my bathroom, drawn to shapes which lunged from the unlit room into the glow of my bedroom. Long, slithering fingers, one by one, the awful things curled around the wood of the en-suite door, tentatively pushing it open. April and I did not make a sound, whether frozen by fear or the shushing demon. We watched as the face pushed out of the darkness. It squeezed through the doorway to reveal features no longer indistinct, still uneven, but horribly memorable. Albert's face was composed of moving wrinkles which sloshed and frothed across his skin like waves. His eyes were no longer hazy holes that I would soon forget, but hypnotic chasms of darkness. Endless pits shielded by eyelids that blinked with unsettling frequency. As Albert reached his unholy fingers towards April, I screamed and pulled her backwards. Screamed not only due to her near end, but due to her scream. What frightened me was that April saw Albert too, and that meant he had always been real. That might not have haunted me so greatly if he had been a man, but he was something else. Albert violated the very laws of nature. I feared that I'd never be able to distinguish between truth and fantasy ever again. April and I sprinted down the stairs, and I felt the house quake under the strain of some immense weight. When we reached the swinging front door, I saw Albert's reflection in the window pane beside it. He had bloomed to an extraordinary, horrifying size, his dimensions filing the upper landing, and the man hunched as he pursued us downstairs. After stepping onto the front lawn, I twisted slowly, but found that Albert had not followed us onto the front lawn. He had just disappeared. After taking a second to relish in the breeze battering my skin, I joined April in crying for help. Those cries were drowned, however, by approaching sirens. Neither of us had managed to call the emergency services, but the reason for their arrival quickly revealed itself. At the end of the street, buried within the splayed bark of a tree, was Michael's car. He had not been drinking, had not swerved to avoid something in the road, as far as eyewitnesses know. I knew what had done it. I knew who had panicked my two friends within that mangled heap of metal. April and I decided, without uttering another word to one another, that we would not speak of what we had seen. We rushed towards the paramedics and firefighters, but the fate of our friends was written on their grimacing faces. It was hours later that I thought of Albert's threat, thought of my mother. When we reached her flat, the place had been ransacked and she was nowhere to be seen. Months later, she is still missing, and my terror never dies. Not knowing what she endured, or continues to endure, is an agony deeper than seeing the contorted corpses of my friends in that wreckage. I don't know whether I'll ever see my mother again. I don't know whether I'd want to see her, want to see the things Albert has done. April and I haven't stopped running. I still believe that this thing follows us, though I now know it lives outside of me. Albert wants me to be alone, for that is how it survives. It feeds on my separation from all others. I know I should leave April. If I isolate myself, giving Albert what he desires, that may well save her. On the other hand, even if I abandon April, this creature may well still hunt her, may still do something unfathomably twisted to her. If I stay by her side, she has a chance. We both have a chance. I must remember what my mother said. No matter the lies it tells, never face it alone. And alright guys, that wraps up Unexplainable Stories from Reddit. I really liked all the stories we covered in today's video. I mean, let me know what you thought of them down below, but all three of these stories were just great in my opinion. They were long, but all I think really well written and just really good, entertaining stories. So let me know what you'd like to see in the future, what type of stories, what type of, everything. Like how long do you want the video, how short do you want the video to be, and just, yeah, let me know what you thought about the video. And please like the video, it helps a ton, and please subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, see ya.